Welcome to Off the Console, the hottest new podcast that's all about gaming, tech news, and anything nerdy. This week we're covering the biggest news, including Computex. A bunch of, let's just say the AMD Nvidia feud is continuing with some Intel injected in there. Yeah, we'll get into it. I'm not going to make any jokes about Nvidia yet on that, but we're also going to be doing some Switch 2 leaks on it being maybe not as good as the Steam Deck in some ways, and various other topics that we always like to talk about. With us is a special guest. That's your second time now, the Phawx? Welcome.
Second time I've been here. Yeah, thank you for having me back, guys. Really appreciate it.
Welcome.
Oh yeah,
You're always welcome to join us whenever you'd like.
Thank you.
I learn so much every time, and so I enjoy having
Phawx
you here.
Phawx is truly an OG when it comes to these handhelds, the PC handheld world.
Yeah, there was dozens of us in the long ago, 9 years ago.
Dozens.
There was dozens of us.
Nice. Yeah, I remember senior episodes from back then. Your videos. So
I think we all I don't know when you all found him, but I found him when he was doing reviews on the old GPD wins.
Yeah,
the really old ones are based on Intel, and despite knowing that they weren't technically that good compared to my game PC or whatever, they looked really cool, I will say.
I think they opened up a lot of eyes for a lot of people. They thought that it would not have been possible at all to do that in a handheld form factor.
Yeah.
So I think that was the start of seeing the light.
Yeah. Yeah, I love pushing the little things to do as big as tasks as I want it to do, with games and stuff. It's always fun. Also with me is Gardner and High Tech. And then, of course, I'm James, or you can also The Brink, whatever else. So, let's dive into what we've been doing this week, what we've been playing, starting with the Phawx. Anything, what have you been doing this week?
So I've been this week was actually pretty productive for me for the amount of videos that I've uploaded this week. So I got a fair amount of stuff done. Video game wise, it's been falling behind. I have been wanting to play Doom the Dark Ages for 10 days now, and I haven't been able to actually start playing it. But that's because I was playing Blueprints and Oblivion, so I've been kind of going back and forth between those two games, and I still want to play Doom the Dark Ages right now. But Oblivion is where I'm kind of firmly seated.
What is Blueprints?
Blueprints is, oh man, the genre of Blueprints is a bunch of stuff. If you could imagine a card based board game that you are shuffling a deck of rooms and you are placing those rooms down in this grid pattern. The thing is that it's a roguelike. There's just a bazillion things that they just tacked onto this, as you can go on and on for what it is, but essentially that's what it is. It's a roguelike deck builder, house builder, mansion builder, and as you are building that out, there are clues to figure out and piece out. It's a little bit brutal with regard to RNG, and you can't see your deck at all until you're ready to deal, basically. So you go up to a door and it's here's your 3 cards, and you're oh well, sometimes you get if you had the foresight to know there was some of them you need resources to be able to lay down, and you may or may not, every room that you go to, you start exhausting how much energy you can go to. So there's all of these points of contention that every move that you make has to be decisive, because there's a limited amount of moves that you can make. So largely it's a roguelike puzzle game that has all these elements to it. It's a lot of fun, and I totally recommend going in blind, because if you go in with reading guides and stuff, you lose all of the fun of discovery, that you had from the long ago. And that's something that I love most about video games, is when you had that sense of discovery and the euphoria of figuring stuff out, versus when I've done stuff where I'm just looking at a guide. It feels like a chore at that point, and I'm just doing a checklist of stuff without really engaging with it. And Blueprints I'm a huge fan of. A lot of people were talking it up, and it's somewhere in between there. I still do recommend most people play it. but it's just a very interesting conceptual game that I'm glad exists.
Sounds interesting.
It does sound interesting.
It's super cool.
You know, I don't know why, but I know this isn't like a horror game or anything like that. But for some reason, you describing like a game about houses, it kind of reminds me of this book called House of Leaves. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it or not.
Mm-mm.
It's a very unusual book, and I can't describe it that well. I'm not very good at describing books, but essentially, what happens is a guy and his wife moves into a house, and then he finds that the house is like 1 inch bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, and so like the house is like continuously evolving or some shit. It's insane. You should read it.
Okay, yeah. So exactly like that, and every time the day resets, the house starts brand new. So that's what Blueprints.
Oh fuck.
Yeah, yeah. So that's basically what. So you're like, there's not like you're constantly building, and you're like, oh, good, it's like that. No. It changes every day, and you can really just get effed by RNG real hard, which is a little bit brutal about the game, and you really have to invest time into exploring each room because there's lots of nuggets of hidden stuff to them.
Which like you die in your house if you fail?
No, you basically run out of it. So you either will trap yourself where you'll the last room that you could possibly put down, you need to make like a left, and there won't be a left in your deck. So you basically made a dead end for yourself. And then, day's over. Just say the day's over. Or you did have enough going on, but you run out of energy. You have like 50 rooms that you can go through at any given day. So you can increase that by like eating food inside of the house. There's lots of different things that happen. But there's also buffs that you can do to the rooms as you go on. So those buffs are permanent after they happen. So there's lots of stuff like that. It is a really cool game. It's what I love most about it is that you can compartmentalize your playthrough of it. So it's like, okay, day one, you played through it. Once day one finishes, it's about like a 20-minute amount of time to go through like each house, each time you build out the mansion. So you can figure that the game is kind of containerized inside of these 20-minute chunks, which makes it great for short playthroughs. Because like, oh, I have like 20 minutes, let me get in another day. And like, okay, I just put in another day. And that's like another reason why I like the game is that you don't feel like there's like this necessity to keep going. You can kind of like, okay, I finished up the day, or like something's coming up, you're like, all right, well, let me just finish up this day. It's nice that it works like that.
This looks really fun. I'm looking at it on Steam. I have it wishlisted already. I'm gonna
yeah, it's a cool game.
Isn't House of Leaves like what the myhouse.wad is based on?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what it's based on.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay. That My House thing was fantastic.
Yeah. It was super cool.
Yeah, really awesome. I think like that one dude that they always YouTube keeps showing me that same video. So you want to watch it again? Yeah. And I'm like, not really, but it was a good video. Yeah, it's fantastic. Like the whole bit of it, technically wise, like how the map was built, that WAD was built, and going through that, it's a very fascinating piece of Doom stuff.
Yeah,
non-Euclidean geometry.
There,
yeah.
Okay,
Nice.
So High Tech, what have you been up to? Oh,
so I've been playing 2 games. The 100. Dude, this is like I'm gonna keep mentioning this. The 100 line. I'm striving to get all 100 endings to this game, and it's keeping me from playing Expedition 33.
Which game is this? I'm sorry, I missed it.
The 100 line Last Defense Academy.
Okay.
Yeah, it was actually featured on one of the Next Fest, like a few back, and it was pretty cool. It's a like hybrid turn-based RPG mixed with visual novel mixed with tower defense, and it's anyways. So I've been playing that, but I've also been playing Capcom Fighting Collection 2, and because I have a fight stick that Canva sent me, or I think some people say Quamba, but there's no like W in it, so I don't know if.
I always just do Qua for, so like even like the quick access menu on Steam Deck, I say Quam. So whatever, I get what you're saying. QAMBA, the arcade stick manufacturer. I'm following. Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah, man, I've been kicking ass as because I'm a grappler main, and I know a little bit about playing fighting games. I know that's what Fan in the Deck and I have in common. We play fighting games. Have you
Nice.
considered building your own fight stick, the Phawx?
No,
Cary?
no. So these are two things. Gyro and fight sticks are two things that I can look at from afar and grapple with the idea in my head of them being superior. But I'm so either set in my ways that it is literally like asking me to pat my head and rub my stomach at the same time when I use them, that it starts just breaking. Like I feel like I'm like turning left when I'm using them. Um, it's just like one of those things. Like gyro, I have seen people be super nasty with gyro to the point of like, okay, that is as good as mouse, and I know it, I can see it, but every time I use it, I'm doing one or the other, and for the life of me,
Yeah.
I can't.
It makes,
I have to just keep on pushing myself to use it. Is basically what it comes down to.
it makes sense. I know some people have more fun building fight sticks than they do actually using them.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
kind of like mechanical keyboards almost, or
Right.
building a PC.
yeah, that's how all enthusiast stuff is, right? Like, especially for like, there's a whole segment of like on my Discord and stuff for like handhelds. You know, seldom do we play video games. We just run them and see how well they run. That's it. That's what you do.
True that.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be fun. You should build your own fight stick. It's a lot cheaper than you'd expect, though. I think the hardest part is finding a box to house the PCB and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I've built a barcade, and I bought all the parts and put it all together, and I just appreciate traditional arcade sticks. I will not say that I'm opposed to fight sticks as they are. I think I see the value in them. I just really have to start using them. That's all.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Don't worry. We're gonna Rich and I are gonna train you, man. You're gonna be the next Evo champion.
Easy.
Nice.
Evo moment 45 or whatever. That'll be my time to shine.
Nice.
Nice. Gardner, what have you been up to?
I've been playing a lot of like Wii games with Emily. We have been going. We actually just beat.
We have been.
Sorry.
No, sorry. You were saying we have been. I just had to throw it in there.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, we actually beat WarioWare Smooth Moves
Nice.
the other day, and that was a lot of fun. And I actually kicked ass at that the dancing boss level where you had to like dance and tap to the music. I totally smashed that.
Nice.
I'm just more of a party game kind of guy. And then Emily like was being really mean, and she made a me of me, and I just dropped it in the chat, and she named me Grumpner. She actually kind of
nice.
nailed it.
Oh, God.
Nice.
It needs glasses, but
Yeah,
solid.
well, none of the glasses matched my glasses, so what I figured go without them. But yeah, we've been having fun, and then I've been installing SteamOS on literally every piece of hardware that it will be installable on,
Nice.
and it's been fun. The one I found that doesn't actually work is the B-Link GTI 13. This is an Intel GPU, but then it has like a 6600 XT, and it doesn't work.
You know,
at least not normally.
You know what's funny about that B-Link thing? I sent them that idea when they asked for ideas, and I put the GPU in the front, and they were like, "Oh no, we're not going to use that idea." And then like 6 months later, they came out with that, and I was like, "That's fine, guys. You should have put the GPU in the front. Like, like you're missing out here."
Yeah.
Wait,
No,
so what does putting the GPU in the front do for us? Because I'm trying to conceptualize what that was.
Well, you're blocking not a ton of airflow in front of it, but it's just you're going to be having it. I don't see the point of having the B-Link in the front, especially if you're going to have this on your desk. Having the GPU in the front just looks nicer. Like I have my Oculink GPU, and that's like front and center, so it becomes a nice desk accessory, for lack of a better word. And you're just kind of like hiding it. And I'm a big fan of what they've done. I actually have that as my living room PC. That's what I made a video on how. Windows failed you, and basically showing you how to like use an Xbox controller to like wake the machine, switch over HDMI to it, do everything through a controller only. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that unit.
Yeah, it's super nice. I think I think it's like throwing a kernel panic because it doesn't have the XT drivers or something. I haven't deep dived into it because I just started doing it today with this device. But like it doesn't even get to like plasma loading in the like in the installer stuff. So yeah, but it is pretty neat. Like SteamOS works really well. I installed it on my my office gaming mini PC over here, the HX100G from Minis Forum.
Nice.
And it works super great. Doom the Dark Ages on low settings runs at 60 FPS, and I didn't try unlocking it, but it runs at 60 solid. It's super nice.
Nice.
And I have the a Sony Trinitron Vega over here, and I have the mini PC plugged into that, and it looks phenomenal on a CRT.
Nice.
It looks so nice.
Yeah. I still can't believe you got a Trinitron for free.
Dude, I got it for free, man. It was awesome.
Sometimes you get that.
People don't know what they have, man.
Yeah.
And they just want to get rid of it because it's a big 300-pound TV, you know?
Yeah. I got a CRT, a Sony CRT from someone that was supposed to be a 32-inch, and it wound up being 36. And you wouldn't think that 4 more inches adds all that much weight, but it went from like 220 pounds to 360.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah, so me and my brother were going there, and we lifted up, and we're like, "What the hell? Are we like weak or something?" And it's smooth, right? Like there's nothing to grip onto.
Nothing. Yeah.
It's like, who designed this thing?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Do you have is it the flat like widescreen?
This is a 4x3, but yeah, it's a flat Trinitron, right? And it's just smooth as can be. And the only thing you can grip onto is the bottom base, which just eats into your hands.
Chews your fingers. Yeah. Yep.
That's it.
This one is 30 inches diagonal. It's a 16:9, and it has an HDMI port, like a HDMI 1.0 port on the back. It's super nice.
Nice.
Yeah. I have all my my retro consoles going into a like a AV receiver, and then that AV receiver goes into a retro tank, and the retro tank goes into a HDMI switcher, which then goes into the TV.
I gotcha.
And Emily is just learning how to actually like switch consoles and stuff, but they're all set up and ready to play at one time, so it's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I had it set up like that at one point. I'm gonna be retrofitting it into like I think a wall mounted like collector's kind of console thing. That's gonna be fun. That's my next project.
It's always fun that desire exists, right? It's like there's gonna be these cubicles of all of these consoles that I will just turn on and they will automatically go to the TV.
Yep. You know, Gardner. Yeah. I've been super curious since you have a CRT. What happens if you enable a CRT filter in a game and then play it with the CRT filter on a CRT?
To be honest, I haven't tried that, but that's something I should look into.
Yeah,
and record it too.
You're probably gonna split Earth. It's just like,
yeah. I want to see it. I want to see it happen. That's why I asked.
I'm gonna predict
with this. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm gonna predict it's gonna be like extra fuzzy.
Yeah. Well, with this TV, it's displaying like a 720p progressive image, so it's not really showing scan lines. So if I enable scan lines, you'll see them again, which I'm kind of curious now how it like displays that. I think it'd be pretty neat.
Do it.
You can have that true feel of a CRT. Right now, you don't have a true CRT experience yet.
I really wish that CRTs would make a comeback. I really
Me
do.
too.
It's like once we lost it, we didn't know what we had.
Yeah. And now we know, and we can't, and they don't make new CRTs anymore now, huh?
There was that brief moment where they were called SEDs. Canon, I believe, had a patent on them, and they were basically flatter CRT like. And they never got traction. They never came out, and that was 25 years ago at this point. That I saw those at like CES 2000 or whatever.
2000.
It's a long time ago. This is when CRTs were obviously still around, and this is maybe 2020, 2002, because plasma was also like a thing. LCDs sucked but existed. it's crazy to think like how long LCDs have been around and how far they've been improved.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, when you really get down to it, the benefits of CRT are clearly understood only now, when we have been like, everyone I guess thought that like, oh well, technology will just make these better and eventually they're going to be better than CRTs. But there's like so many things about CRTs, especially with just how when you just have scanning that Foster over, it that someone, well, what's his name? Oh, goodness, Lotz. I think his last name is Lotz. He's a GPU um, programmer. He made a CRT beam simulation that you can do in a shader, and you can do it on OLEDs. And effectively, have you guys ever used like BFI, black frame insertion?
Yeah.
I saw your video on it once, but I think you took it down at one point, didn't you?
For the BFI one, I may have, or just temporarily. In any event, BFI inserts a black frame. So if you go on 120 hertz, you have a black frame that's inserted in between every other frame. Effectively, you have 60 FPS, but you're basically putting this black frame to simulate a CRT. The problem with that is that you are massively going to diminish your brightness because you're injecting this black frame into them. So black frame insertion, it effectively works similar to how BFI does without any of the brightness diminishing stuff. And you have to witness it to see it. And you can't like take a picture of it. It's like taking a picture of like look at how good this HDR is and showing someone a picture of that. Like you're like, well, that's not going to work. You have to witness it to experience it, and the motion clarity that comes from it is stuff that CRT stuff we used to just get for free. Like there's like a bunch of things that CRT do that just are pleasing to the eye. So yeah, we lost a lot when we left CRTs, and I wish somehow, some way they would come back. But it looks like now we're sort of like OLEDs are just gonna have quad layers in them and just running them in tandem and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. I don't know.
They'll have to get somewhere. They have to get somewhere. Like they're going to run into a. Well, they're going to only be able to improve so much to where they're going to be like, you know what, we need CRTs back in space stations, just like an Alien or something.
The funny thing is like so like high tech low life, right? Cyberpunk. For me, Cyberpunk, you go back to it. When you go back in time to like the 1980s, lots of fascinating documentaries. Apologies for going on a tangent here, guys. When you look at like the 1980s, and everyone had a genuine fear that Japan was going to come for the computer industry, like they had come for consumer electronics, like they had come for automotive. They were genuinely afraid that Japan was like they had not made a presence here yet, but once they were, GG, game over. Like they won. But the biggest impediment for Japan was apparently their character set. And there's a Computer Chronicles episode from a long ago that covered it. It was like a jewel of information. But basically at the time, because they were doing everything in katakana, they have 3 different symbols that they use. In any event, to create one of those characters effectively on the CRTs that they had, because they were so low resolution, they were doing 3 words per minute typing out. So they were just going so slow to just formulate words that they would never catch up. So NEC and stuff that they had in Japan kind of stayed in Japan. And I don't know where NEC is right now. But you look at that, especially with the golden years of Japan, right? Because they dominated in automotive, they dominated in consumer electronics. You have the birth of cyberpunk and the idea of cyberpunk, and it was part and parcel with Japan being a dominant force in the future. That every part of cyberpunk has Japanese influence and CRTs everywhere. And it's funny because, like, you look at Johnny Mnemonic, right? Like the movie Johnny Mnemonic is a very cyberpunk movie. There's like a cone of CRTs that are like, there's like certain distinctive cyberpunk elements to me that we will never really have that cyberpunk, but it is something that I desperately still wish to happen. In a way, right? Like, minus the dystopia, but there's just a lot of stuff in there that is endearing to me that I find fascinating. Sorry for the digression.
It's all good, man.
It's all good.
It's great.
It's all
great.
good, man. Korea is a lot closer to this vision of Cyberpunk, minus the neon, of course. Especially with Samsung being as big as it is in Korea.
Yeah, Samsung's huge. I didn't realize how big Samsung was until I learned that they also made tanks.
Yeah.
Here's our Samsung tank. Like, oh, all right, you guys are doing that? Jeez.
Where do I order that?
They also do insurance in Japan too, I think.
They probably do everything. They're so massive.
It's the Cyberpunk way, man.
It's so massive. Well,
I don't.
Let's get back on this track. Because I want to talk about myself. I have been playing Expedition 33 still. I never got to Doom. I want to get to Doom. Gardner scared me, and now I'm taking comfort in Expedition 33 still and just enjoying this French RPG. It is so fun.
FRPG.
FRPG.
It's not a JRPG.
It's not a JRPG, but it's like a JRPG. But it's
FRPG.
Yeah,
it's like a JRPG.
It's fresh. I like it.
Yeah, I think what sold me most, like I was always looking at Expedition 33, and I was like, oh, this looks pretty cool. And then one of the not so long ago, because we had seen it like a year or so ago, I was like, oh, that looks kind of cool. And then the latest gameplay update that they showed like 8 months ago or whatever, they showed the overworld map of them running around on it, and I was like, oh snap, like that. That felt like the proper evolution of JRPGs to me that somehow I missed. And that is when it really clicked for me. And then I'm just glad that the game has taken off and has found an audience and people are enjoying it. That's another game that I really have to get to, but that's going to be further down. I have to get to Doom sooner than later.
Yeah, dude. There's so many games coming out this year. It's crazy. Gardner, have you progressed through Doom: The Dark Ages? Has your opinion changed on that a little bit?
To be honest, I have played more of it, but it's really kind of, I'm using it to kind of benchmark games and not really, benchmark hardware. I'm not really enjoying Doom: The Dark Ages like I wanted to. I'm a huge fan of 2016. I'm a huge fan of Doom Eternal, and it's just a completely different game. It feels like a totally different genre to me.
Right.
And I have warmed up to it a bit, but it's still just not what I want from a Doom game.
I follow you.
Yeah.
That's why I feel like with Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, I don't feel like that's a Zelda game in the slightest. That's
what about
Banjo.
Breath of the Wild?
Breath of the
It's
Wild.
even less, in my opinion.
I like Breath of the Wild a whole bunch. The dungeons suck terribly, but
yeah, I agree with you.
What Breath of the Wild does versus all of the previous games is have the same they spark the same level, the same sense of wonder and curiosity that I had when I first played the original Legend of Zelda when I was like 7 years old. And I'll give you an example. When you go in, because it's a screen-based Legend. You guys have all played Legend of Zelda, the original Legend of Zelda, right? So when you go into like a new area, right? Some areas you go into will be a dead end, and you'll see 3 rocks or like 3 trees. And it's like, well, that's an oddly specific amount of things there. And it's a small amount enough, a number of things that you like push into it, put a bomb on it, light it on fire, and something happens, something magical happens where they didn't fill a bunch of stuff on the screen that you have to try every one of them. They put 3 there, and the number 3 comes up a lot in Legend of Zelda. And Breath of the Wild has that same thing where you'll just be running, and off in the distance somewhere you'll see a cliff that has 3 trees, and I'm like, hang on a moment, I have to go over here now. And I would just run. And because you could explore anywhere in that game and nothing really stopped you outside of your own stamina bar, that is what I found to be the closest connection to a Legend of Zelda game. And Tears of the Kingdom, basically how it worked out was I was no longer, to give you an example, there's like sometimes when you're playing like Zelda games, the puzzles that you figure out aren't terribly difficult if you really think about it. Like you just told someone, you're like, oh, that's simple. But when you're in the moment, right? Like, for example, like Spirit Tracks, right? Or like a DS Zelda game. It's like press the map against your map. And you're like, press the map against my map. So I'm like using the stylus to draw the map, and I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? And you're like closing the lid to like press the map on your map, and you're like, and then you open up the DS and it's like do 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 do, and you're like, oh, like that sense of euphoria that you figured that puzzle out. And Tears of the Kingdom, you don't figure out puzzles, you just build something until you brute force your way into a solution. And that is not a Zelda game to me. That's just Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts. And
I like Banjo-Kazooie nuts and bolts.
it's not a bad game, but it's not what I like. To Gardner's point, I'm looking, if you're looking for a Doom game and it doesn't feel like that, it may take you a moment to like kick into gear of like what's going on here. And for me, even when I beat the game, I was just like, all right, well, I wanted to beat the game because of the story, but that's like, I can find a relation to where Gardner might be coming from with Doom the Dark Ages.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I mean, there's just some the mechanics of like the bullet hell stuff going on. It just really just takes me out. Like, I know a lot of people are like praising that and it like draws them in. For me, it just pulls me out. Like, I want the glory kills back. I want like the constant forward momentum, and it feels like there's too much defensiveness. You put the shield up, you dodge the thing, you parry, and it's like, that's not what I want with Doom.
Right. Yeah, I can feel that. Yeah, that makes sense to me. It's like if you stray too far from the formula, if you like the ship of Theseus, right? Like, how many parts can you remove before it's no longer the ship?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of it also feels a little incomplete. Like the biggest thing is like when you encounter the other like knights or whatever you call them, like the other slayer, they're not slayers, I don't know what they are, but like your teammates essentially, they literally are just sitting there, like they're kneeling at a doorway like this and holding their weapon and just repeating this idle pose, and they're like kneeling ready to go and never actually moving. And every time I've encountered those those enemies, they're never fighting demons. You're the only one doing it. And it's like, that pulls me out. I don't know. There's a lot I could go on and on about this game. I've played a ton of it now, and I'm
100% with you. Actually, I have it on Twitter a long time ago, because everyone was like talking up like the Last of Us AI, and I'm playing on like the hardest difficulty, and I'm like pressed up against this like stairwell that is see-through. Like they can clearly shoot me, but they're shooting my friends, and those friends aren't shooting back, and they're just screaming, and I'm just like panning back and forth between what's going on, and it's like a minute, and it's just, this is not smart AI by any stretch of the imagination. Sometimes that could really draw you out.
I was playing earlier on the on my office gaming mini PC, and I was like, there was like a ton of like low level fodder demons, and none of them appeared until after like a higher level imp showed up or whatever, and he threw one bolt at me, and then all of a sudden all these low level guys came in, and then the big boss guy stopped attacking because there were too many other demons around me. And I was like, that is so lame. And I was like sitting there like staring at him, waiting for him to like shoot his stupid green bolt at me so I could parry it. And because there were so many other demons, he wasn't attacking. I was like, this is totally pulling me out of the game.
Right.
Anyway, I could go on and on.
So, sounds like you need to play Expedition 33. It's very chilling. It's very relaxing.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons I've been playing.
When everyone tells you to parry instead of dodge attacks.
I don't care. I think it's relaxing. It has very peaceful music. The enemies everything's like very French artistic kind of thing. And I just gotta say,
dude, someone told me one of the first enemies you fight in the game was like a mime or some shit, and like, no way that's real, right?
Technically, yeah. Actually, yeah. The first, if you want to fight, besides the just a fun sparring match with I'm not gonna ruin anything, but with someone like a friend, you do run into a mime. Yeah, and then that's actually a collectible throughout the whole game, is where you get collectible gear from them everywhere. They're really hard to kudos to anyone that's beat the mime in the beginning part. Like, it wasted me. But even if you don't like turn-based RPGs, there's still some real-time elements to it. I definitely would recommend at least trying it out. But I set up the VR also for my son, and I am about to start Half-Life Alyx again. I might be playing Half-Life Alyx again before Doom.
Hell yeah, dude.
I'm waiting for a Deckard before I jump back at Alex.
Yeah,
What's that?
I would like
man.
to get the Deckard. I would like to get the Deckard too, if that
yeah.
ever comes out. How long's it been now? Like 4 years at this point since they
not
announced the Deckard.
I have no idea. I'm not sure, but I mean, I'll just keep waiting. I mean, I have an index, but what I played on it initially first, and I played through the first 2 levels, and then for whatever reason, I do know what reason, my area here got clustered, and then I couldn't have space to actually play anymore, and then time went away. But yeah, I'm looking forward to replaying Half-Life Alyx when Deckard eventually comes out.
You know, James, when you mentioned VR, I thought you were going to say you were playing Expedition 33 in VR. I was like, why are you playing a JRPG in VR?
I could, I guess. It just would be like on a screen.
Yeah, 2D.
Not
I feel like they're sadly it's Bradley. I follow him a lot, and he seems like super hardcore into VR stuff, and he's like genuinely inside of the VR space. And I don't know if he genuinely is trying to do it or just doing it because of some other reason, but he's taking video and pictures of him existing in virtual reality often. And I feel like that is the level that VR more or less needs to get at, to actually, make headway, make some traction. Because if it's it's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons. And what I mean by that is, like, Dungeons and Dragons is an awesome idea that you and a bunch of friends can play, but then getting all of your friends to have the exact moment of same time to play Dungeons and Dragons, if you can't arrange that to happen, well, you're not going to be in VR, right? Like, it's like, it needs to be on at all times, and like, just kind of on your head so you can slip back in. And if that means augmented reality for a computer, whatever you have, so you just have like a Bluetooth keyboard that you are now looking through and a virtual screen comes up, so it's in effect augmented reality, extended reality, but full on VR. So there's multiple things that are competing there, how long battery life is going to last, and all this other stuff. I can see it, I can see the idea and appeal to it, and I wonder if Deckard will get there. I like the Quest 3. I don't know what kind of VR headsets you guys have.
I have the Valve's Index.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
the Index is
same.
good, but so you guys don't have the Quest 3.
I don't have an Index. My brother has a Quest 2, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so Quest 2 is also pretty cool. Quest 3 takes it up to another level insofar as exiting and entering into VR while keeping the goggles on. So you can just like tap on the side and just like the camera comes in, and then you have the inside out tracking, but you can see it does a lot of cool things. There's like games that you could play. Like my son, he would go into our living room and you can scan the room and it'll be like, okay, these are all things that I'm now spatially aware of. So you'll have like zombies coming through the windows and you're shooting them, and you can like, run inside your own space, but having stuff be there. And that's really cool. But the visuals from a Quest 3 are not good enough. I have not tried a Vision Pro from Apple yet, but I heard that's very good. But that's like, to me, the level that Deckard really needs to get to really take it to the next level. And I'm just hopeful that they do.
I think most people are just waiting for something like, have you watched Sword Art Online? Phawx? No?
I'm aware of it.
But like, you get the idea, right? Like, it's a like,
that's a crazy one to compare.
Or you can do the Matrix. Yeah, or you can do the Matrix. You're literally stuck in the Matrix as well, where like your mind is like in VR space almost.
You're being
where
harvested.
like it's connected to your brain.
Right. Yeah. Sadly, it's Bradley also brought that up yesterday or today. It was Gabe's other company for neuro input. Yeah. So, cool stuff. Like there's, there's neat things and applications of like, how do we bridge that gap? And if you could jump into the matrix, like plug in, like legit plug in, I would be interested in doing something like that, but it would have to have assurances that I wouldn't die. Um, but as long as those assurances were there, I would totally jump in. I would totally be plugged. I'm already plugged into the internet as is, so it's not that far removed. But yeah, I think that if you could be actually inserted into a virtual world and exist in there outside, like, virtual reality is just trying to make that happen with external stuff. I think it's cool. I think it's a really cool idea, and who knows if we ever actually get there.
I'd only do it if I could self-host it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, no, totally, right? Because, like, I mean, not to get all like, oh man, it's like this whole like kind of upsetting part of me where I feel like the need to like start, I'm already there where I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to have to start doing everything myself. I can't, like, I'm legitimately at the point where Google sucks, search engines suck. I can see AI helping search for me and decrapify. Like, I want to make my own local AI, my own local LLM that would just search for me and decrapify Google. That, it's like, but I'm in agreement with you. Like, you have to be at the position where, even where LLMs are, right? Like, Google used to have that golden age, right? Where everyone used Google and you'd search and it would be like, oh, that was exactly what I was looking for. And that happened for years. And then in the past, 5 years, that has started to decline where it's just not been as good. And I feel like AI does that in some sense. It gives us that, whoa, look at that. That's awesome. And you have to wonder how much longer until like you type something in AI and it's like, well, have you considered buying this product? And it's like, no. I'm not looking for whatever sponsored link you have at the top here. Give me what I want. Don't give me the crap.
Have you seen that leaked internal Google video called The Selfish Ledger?
No.
Look it up because it will creep you the fuck out. It's essentially Google's idea of like how we can monetize every single aspect of every human interaction and make people want us to do that for them. And it's absolutely wild. It's crazy.
No, I totally get it. I mean, like, I see if you just take a step back and just take a look at whatever you're doing and saying, okay, this is no longer, what I'm searching for is no longer of concern to Google. What I'm looking for is no longer a concern to Google. Google will put whatever I am looking for and find something slightly adjacent that they could sell to me, or that someone could pay them to put in front of my eyes. And you get that feeling, but the problem is that there's a lot of people that don't get disconnected, where they don't realize that isn't what they were actually looking for, and don't also accept that Google is only showing you what they want to show you. And it goes in that whole vein of like, for also YouTube content and stuff, right? Like, if a tree falls in the forest but there's no one to hear it, does it make a sound? And it's like, if you make a video but YouTube doesn't show it, did you actually make a video? Like, if YouTube doesn't show your stuff, all of that is gauged. And
you mentioned a very scary. I saw your post on Twitter. You mentioned a very scary possibility.
Oh, the Google VO stuff.
Yeah. So you know how like, so like, I don't know if you other guys have seen it, but like, essentially, you know how like a lot of channels are using AI to make content. What if Google just cuts out the content creators and just makes YouTube entirely AI generated, where you just type shit in like your quote unquote search bar and it quote unquote searches for you, but it turns out it just makes a bunch of videos.
They'll do something similar. They'll do something. I don't think they can replace everyone, but they'll start doing what they can.
They'll certainly try.
If you look at Google VO3, there has been someone, like a lot of the Google VO, I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But then someone made interdimensional cable for that. And I don't know if you guys have ever watched Rick and Morty. So they just had real life characters, just like 6 seconds clips, and then go to some other really bizarre internet, And it was, the problem is that I genuinely found it slightly fascinating, and I was actually watching it. And when I started watching it, I was just like, oh wait, this is AI slop. And it was just like, oh, this is gonna, this is it.
Man, the
How,
kids don't stand a chance.
yeah.
I mean, that's why I started my blog, because I was like, YouTube is heading for self-destruction or like social destruction or something, and I just need my own outlet
Right.
where I can communicate with people. You
I
know?
feel like it's the eventual process, like where you start to like become aware of what's going on. And you're like, I just need to have a farm, and I need to generate my own electricity, and I need to host my own stuff and take care of my own stuff. I don't want any of this anymore.
Thankfully, even in the post-YouTube era, this podcast will hopefully live on because it's on other platforms.
Yeah.
Yep, and it's also like on what are the platforms? Apple Podcasts, Spotify. So, should we talk about Computex now? I think it's about time we get into that because I know things have been very.
I was looking at my LM Studio, which is I can run my local LM like AI stuff and just seeing what I can do search wise.
Oh right, you're trying to
do what the
you're trying to
Phawx
make
can do.
your house AI, right?
Yes, my house pet.
Yeah. You
One
just
day.
say home.
It's getting closer.
Can you say house do this for you? House
No,
make my dinner for me.
I used to have it automated. I
can.
need to get back into it. Oh, that's right. You have those special
I have Home Assistant.
devices.
Yeah. It's Home Assistant's pretty neat, but yeah, let's get to Computex.
Let's well, hold up, guys. Before we do that, anyone that's watching, especially watching, subscribe, gotta follow us, do all that good stuff. If you have not done so, you can also, if you're listening, follow us on your favorite podcast.
Leave us some comments too. I want to hear what you guys think.
We'll get to that. Mm-hmm. And then the RSS feed, just I'll say that real quick. The podcast.subscribe2.me. And so, yeah, that
It's Fediverse enabled. You can comment with your Mastodon account.
It's safer and more
Very
fun.
Nice.
Okay, let's get on to the Computex stuff now.
Oh yeah, since the last time you've been here, Phawx, we started sharing screens now. Or at least the host has. In this case, it's James this week. But essentially, Computex happened this week, and it's wrapping up tonight. In fact, it might already be over in Taiwan, since it's
I think it is
already.
Mm-hmm.
But essentially, what's going on is Computex happened. There were a bunch of stuff.
Stuff like this.
Lots of stuff.
Tom's hardware has
unveiled
so
some new
much.
Intel unveiled a new GPU, well, professional GPU, and they unveiled Panther Lake. I'm not super sure what to do with Panther Lake. I think that's more the Phawx's territory.
Yeah, Panther Lake's interesting. They claim that it's going to have the same type of efficiency that Lunar Lake had, which is really good, while having the core design of Arrow Lake H. So that's fascinating. The problem for me, insofar as the handheld game, the biggest detriment that we have, CPU wise, we're cores aplenty, frequency aplenty. We have been too much CPU on the handheld side of things for 7 years now. We don't need more CPU. We need more GPU. And there's G3 GPU core, potentially interesting. They're still LPDDR5 on that platform insofar as the mobile side of things, which means that we're effectively topping off at 8533 megatransfers, which, if it's only 128-bit wide, I didn't see anything that was different for bit width differences on there, aka like Strix Halo. So it remains to be seen how cool this will be for a handheld. And so with regard to the differences between Lunar Lake as it is, like on the Claw 8, right? So is it cool? It's neat, but because we are so because we're so bandwidth starved, unless a GPU comes along that is so fundamentally better at doing more work with the same amount or less memory, we're pretty much stagnant. We're stuck in the water. So from a handheld perspective, not potentially interesting until I could learn more about it, what maybe G3 does, or if there's cache that they have that could facilitate for the GPU as well. That would be a big help. So we have to wait and see. It's interesting, but I couldn't tell you more without actually using it. I couldn't really quantify anything for you.
That's perfectly valid. And I was looking into the new Arc Pros, and for one, these are a lot cheaper than like the $1,000 like graphics cards that Nvidia will sell you for professional use. But also, they won't restrict what drivers you can use with these, so you can use gaming drivers with these if so desired. In fact, I think Maxsun is selling a dual GPU variant, which is like those old, like the 50, like the 590s, like the Nvidia used to make back in the day. I think that was like 25080, 580s. I don't know. It's been a while though. And on the topic of Nvidia released the 5060 this week, and there's been a lot of controversy surrounding that, especially in regards to the fact that they released it within the same week Computex is happening, as to drown out. And a lot of reviewers, like Gamers Nexus and Linus Tech Tips, have both agreed, and they both state that Nvidia is most likely doing this, allegedly, to try to drown out the negative press, given that, these aren't great, big, what's the word I'm looking for? Improvements over the 4060s. And also the fact that, they're super expensive, and that no one can buy them even if they wanted to. I mean, it's a shit show for Nvidia.
Yeah, I have a 5060 Ti right next to me right now. I'm still reviewing it.
How much did you pay? How much over did you pay?
No, I have to send it back to Asus by next week, so I don't have much more time with it. So I'm just kind of running through it real quick and seeing where it starts to break down. But mostly it's just so like, it's fine for me because once I collect my data, whatever, I'll have whatever driver set and, Windows version that I'm using when I have my data, it's still relatively in the ballpark for me to compare to like other things and stuff. But yeah, it's, the Nvidia's in a, it's a crazy thing to say, right? It's like also like, you could, I'm like stumbling along here. Xbox is in third place, right? In a far third place, and they're getting beat up by everybody. It's hard to feel bad for Xbox when it's Microsoft because they're a $3 trillion company, right? Like, oh, boo-hoo, that $3 trillion company is in third place. Likewise, for Nvidia, they find themselves to be in a bad spot. Perhaps there was brain drain because their stock shot up so much, and all the employees that had stock options and were like, peace, like I got my parachute, like pull the ripcord. And there's like driver problems that they're having, and the Blackwell series is not terribly captivating. This entire GPU generation is not very captivating, especially for like AMD's 9070. It would have been if there was enough stock where you could buy the 9070 XT for $600. That's a fantastic GPU for $600. Likewise for the 9060 XT.
I do have a question with that. Didn't they have like more stock though than Nvidia when they released? Just not enough still?
Yeah, they did, but just not enough. Basically, they had a fantastic deal. That all of their businesses that they were like, all like Asus, every company that all the AIBs that they were working with that had made 9070 XTs had stock and were sitting on it for like since mid-January. And RDNA 4 didn't go on sale until sometime in like March. So there was stock sitting around waiting for AMD just to talk about it. And AMD was like, well, what do we do? What do we price it at? And all this other stuff. And they priced it at $600. All the AIBs were expecting it to be $750. So AMD is like, oh, we'll give you a rebate for selling this. And like those sold out. There's a big like hullabaloo. It's near impossible to find that thing for $600, the MSRP for it. And now you have like the 9060 XT, which is supposed to be 300 and 350, 350 for the 16 gigabyte version. That is, positioning itself to be a 5060 Ti competitor. And they're saying they're slightly better than a 5060 Ti. And hundreds of dollars cheaper. So again, you're in a situation where like, wow, AMD is looking like a really great buy. Can you buy it for $350? Who knows?
Do you think is it because there's such there's so much demand and Nvidia's really like they artificially limit
why does Nvidia care? Why does Nvidia care about gamers at all?
They've mentioned they don't care about gamers multiple times. And so I'm shocked that people still trust them, and they do piss me off. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I think part of it is that like people associate AMD with being shitty in terms of GPU, because I mean, for the longest time they have been trailing behind Nvidia for like how many years has it been now?
Nvidia always had proprietary stuff that was always better or ahead of the curve of on AMD. No matter what it was, when 3D was a thing, Nvidia had a better solution. AMD had like an open source solution. AMD's solution still works, whereas Nvidia's thing doesn't. So there's like things like that were going on, and then obviously they went into upscaling, machine learning upscaling and stuff, and they had a lead on that, and now the FSR4 is finally good enough for that. But you're at a point where Nvidia, I don't really blame Nvidia all that much, because Nvidia was always looking for the next big thing. Like in 2010, 2008, you could have bought their stock for like, I don't know, $5. It was like $5 a share. It's like nothing, because no one valued gaming, and even gamers were buying it, but then, they weren't selling enough of them. There was like a set amount of PC gamers, and all the stuff was in console stuff, and that's a whole other bag of noodles. So it's a weird thing for me, because you could argue the fact that Nvidia is in the position they are for machine learning because of gamers, because of enthusiasts paying that top dollar stuff for their stuff for them to get to the point of that. In like 2010, Nvidia got beat up really bad because they were trying to enter the mobile space, and they were getting beat up. No one was buying anything from Nvidia, and everything that Nvidia was making, like they were literally developing chips. They taped them out, got chips, were trying to sell them. They acquired a company that was a software defined radio company for cellular, so that they could be in mobile, right? They were legitimately trying to get wins in cell phones and having zero wins at all. And when they made these chips, no one was buying them. So what do they do with those lemons? They make lemonade. They make the Nvidia Shield. Nvidia Shield comes out, and that's all the reason that product ever existed, was to make use of the garbage that no one wanted. And Tegra X1 was also garbage that no one wanted until Nintendo comes along, and that story is that. But like, Nvidia's not in mobile. They don't care about it anymore. They don't technically care about gaming anymore, because they tried getting in cars with automotive and doing auto stuff for cars. They had no wins there. The reality is that Nvidia is a terrible business partner. And you look at all of their history. Look at what they did with the original Xbox. They were in the original Xbox. There was a GeForce 3. What did they do? Microsoft wanted to make a, hey, the Xbox has been out for 2 years. Can we get a good deal on this? And Nvidia was like, no, you can pay top dollar. And they're like, what the hell? So what does Microsoft do? They fast track the Xbox 360. They're like, screw this. We're making the Xbox 360. Let's go to ATI and IBM. So they leave Nvidia. The PS3 comes along. Cell is a monumental failure. 11th hour, Nvidia comes in. What is Nvidia still in PlayStations? No, they're a terrible business partner. Every time Nvidia gets involved with a business partner, it doesn't work out. You look at the Switch 2, it's $450 and $500 versus $300 now. Why is that? Nvidia wanted their money. And Nintendo helped them out with the X1. They bought their lemons, but now that Switch is a big thing, Nvidia's like, you like our stuff, right? And now they want their money. So they're a bad business partner, and you look at all the things that they've done, and it just turns out that with all the CUDA stuff that they've developed and the machine learning stuff, that everyone uses it. Everyone uses CUDA, and lots of things CUDA was the one thing that Nvidia developed for GPUs that really solidified the foundation of a lot of GPU work. And because all that work was there and foundationally done, they became rigid. And anyone that had to do any work for GPUs, you automatically bought Nvidia. And that was like the catalyst for them to do stuff. So I don't know. You look at a lot of the things that Nvidia done, and they're selling out of their top end stuff for like $50,000 a card or some other nonsense, right? Like, why make chips for gamers, even if you charge them $3,000? Like, it doesn't make sense for them. So
you can do both, though. It's leaving money on the table. So my thing is,
I'm not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I didn't really think about Nvidia being the one with Nintendo's balls in the vice grip. To be honest, I thought it'd be the other way around, because Nintendo, right? But
you look at both of those companies.
Company.
Yeah,
but they're a big company
in the sense of
when you look at when Nintendo first came around, Nvidia was going to Nintendo for business. 100%. I don't know if you guys know, but Nvidia was selling the Switch concept before the Switch even existed. I actually saw it at PAX. They were Nvidia was there, like, hey, check this out. It's an Android tablet, and like you can plug it in and it becomes a thing. I'm like, yeah, all right, but who's making Android games for this? Like, no one's doing this. So I just kind of like went away. And then when I saw the Switch, I was like, holy moly, that's exactly. So Nintendo just bought exactly what Nvidia had wholesale. Like the idea of a Switch-like system was Nvidia's like thing that they pitched to them, and they got. But
they were
were
much of a choice
behind
either, right? Because Nintendo, they needed an out of the Wii U.
Yeah. I mean, they
the Wii
didn't
U was
necessarily.
a failure.
Right, but the idea of Nintendo going to a platform that was portable and console together as one was, in my opinion, not Nintendo's like ultimate decision. Like that might have been like something that was like on the wall somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Nvidia pitched that exact idea because I saw it. Like I literally saw it at a convention. So
Right.
I find it hard to believe that Nvidia is like, here, look, you can have an Android tablet, but you can also have a console. And then like a year or so later, Nintendo has it. I'm like, whoa.
Coincidentally.
Yeah. So I'm sure Nintendo saw this, and they saw that their portable line is super popular. Their Wii U is not. And they're like, look, we're dividing our resources here. Why don't we just do both? Because of this thing, and it works and it's cool. And they bought Nvidia's lemons because Nvidia was dying for someone to take it. I mean, it was so bad that the only company that was literally using the X1 and the K1 was a company called JXD. It was a Chinese company that was making handhelds, back in the old days, right? JXD was using them. They designed the whole thing. They make a deal. Nvidia makes a deal with Nintendo. So sorry, JXD, you can't use this anymore. And JXD basically evaporated as a company. They stopped to exist. So that demolished their entire company. But they're small potatoes and no one knows about them. But at the time, Nintendo was dominant in that business relationship. After the Switch became such a success and everyone wants that Nvidia juice, Nvidia came to the table. Nintendo still wants to make money on their hardware. They made money on the Switch 1, and Nvidia didn't. And now they are. And that's why they're on Samsung 8N, so it's not like that's a super expensive node. They're not like on an advanced node. They're using a chip that was from 2021. So, it's just a business way. Again, I don't like Nvidia, just business, like how they do stuff, but they're doing stuff to what's best for their business, and at the detriment to everyone else. And I'm like, whatever, fine. But Blackwell itself is not terribly exciting for gamers at all. And the thing that they're pitching for everyone was like, oh, we boosted, like, how do you have 80% more bandwidth? 80% more bandwidth, and you're only 20% better than the 4090. Like, if 5090 is 20% better with 80% more bandwidth, it'd be like, the number's staggering to me, and it's like, oh, it's just for feeding for the AI stuff. That's multi-frame generation stuff, and it's like, and that's the other thing that soured a lot of people. And Gamers Nexus was doing it because they got the notice from them. They were like, oh, you show all these things, and Gamers Nexus is like, well, screw that. If we're getting this, we know you're sending it to other people. So if anyone just shows like bogus data, which there were some outlets were like, look at how good the 5060 Ti is, and it shows 5 times better, and it's like, oh, that's multi-frame generation, right? Versus not. Like, that's stupid. It's just I don't know. It's a dumb thing. I can go on and rant about this forever, and I already have gone too far.
Yeah. Well, let's get on to this NVIDIA NVLink. But I will have to say, I do think NVIDIA is shooting themselves in the foot. And I think most companies, they usually will have multi-markets that they go into, especially once they get as big as $1 trillion company. So there's no real reason why they're doing what they're doing, except for...
well, if an enemy keeps making mistakes, why stop them?
Well, you have to understand that I'm sure Nvidia would love to make everything for everything, but the reality is that if TSMC is booked and their schedule time is all scheduled out, you're basically at the whim of how much TSMC can produce for you. So your output is only equal to whatever they can produce. And if that is a limited quantity, you're only going to do your biggest stuff.
I get that, but there's ways around getting getting new partners and stuff like that to build stuff. So
Yeah,
it just amazes me what's going on. But yeah, I haven't seen anything on this. Have you, High Tech or Gardner or the Phawx, on this NVIDIA NVLink?
this is their infrastructure for connecting stuff
It's
together.
for like custom stuff.
Mhm.
I mean, there weren't too many announcements with Nvidia. I just put it there kind of just to have it. And
This is all stuff to join GPUs so that you have a larger VRAM pool, and ultimately this comes down to just be switching.
I mean, to be honest, I kind of made this topic the way it is because the news was kind of light when I did the outline for this, but then we had some much bigger news come out like yesterday. As you know,
So I mean,
SteamOS, 3.718.
this is to work with other types of hardware. So I mean, it doesn't seem like it's big, but this is probably a pretty big deal within the AI sphere of things, especially with how chipsets are specialized anymore. So
Yeah, but given how Nvidia is running it, I'm almost certain it's not going to be as easy as like it sounds. It's going to be some bullshit like stipulations and whatnot because it's Nvidia, right?
You have lots of companies like CoreWeave came out, and they're doing gangbusters right now, and that's all about interconnecting a lot of these things as well. So NVLink isn't terribly new, but like ultimately that's all it comes down to, and this is effectively just PCIe over network, over copper, right? So that's what this all basically boils down to. How do you get AI to grow? How do you get those inferences to do, how can you do more? And it's really just joining all of these together so that they can work on massive data sets faster. And that's all it really comes don to, is just the scalability issue. And they're tackling it. It's really cool stuff, but it's not for us in the slightest. It's for feeding the AI monster right now.
Oh, it's going to be for everyone once they don't have a job. This is what's coming for your jobs. Okay. This website refreshes. I think it's because it's in live mode. It refreshes every I don't know, 30 seconds. So I have to keep on jumping around.
I mean, it makes sense. Yeah.
It's really annoying.
I guess...
do we not have the claw in here? Let's do claw.
MSI brings AMD-based AMD gaming handheld updated mid-range, yada, yada, yada. I mean, to be honest, it's a Z2 refresh. I don't think it's super interesting. What's more interesting, I think, is a Zotac 2 Zone, which comes with a Z2 Extreme, yes. But it also runs Manjaro, which is interesting because it's not SteamOS, but it's not Windows either.
Yeah. Honestly, Manjaro's probably... it's one of my favorite Linux distros, and I know a lot of people have valid criticisms of Manjaro, but like when it comes to just setting it up and not having to worry about your distro, and like I think Manjaro is probably one of the best out there. And so I'm really excited to see this. I was like really keen on the Orange Pi. What was it called? The Orange Pi Neo?
The Orange Pi Neo, yes.
But like that, I don't know what's going on with that. I haven't heard anything about it for ages, but this has kind of captured my attention for sure.
What I do find fascinating is Zotac used to be one of Valve's partners back in the Steam Machine days. I remember that. It had that tiny little cube. It was a mini PC almost.
The SN, was it the SN90 or something like that?
I don't remember, but there were a lot of partners. I mean, Falcon Northwest made a Steam Machine. It was like $5,000.
Yeah. The interesting thing about this is that it's got the Ryzen AI HX370, which is what I think that's the same CPU as what's in my Minis Forum AI whatever this is, AI X1 or whatever, and that CPU and GPU combo rips. It is so performant. Like, oh my god, it blew the pants off the Steam Deck. It blows the pants off the Legion Go. It's so fast, and it can play games like nobody's business. So that'll be cool to see in a handheld.
What I hate. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you can go.
Well, I was just gonna say I hate the naming scheme of the fucking Ryzen AI
Max, yeah.
process. It's abysmal at best.
Yeah, what's really nice is the same one like what the Switch 2, why the Switch 2 has a benefit on its APU arrangement is that you have 16 CUs of RDNA 3.5, and that's really again where you're going to be getting a lot of your performance. It's still limited to 7,500 megatransfers. So you have a real hard cap into like what you're going to be able to achieve. You're better off leveraging lower resolutions and lower settings to achieve higher frame rates that the CPUs can help out on. If you start upping resolution, you're going to find you're going to have a hard ceiling fast because you'll be just massively GPU bound and the CPUs aren't going to just do nothing for you. So, HX370 is nice with 16 CUs, but it's just an expensive part. Typically HX370 machines with like 32 gigs of RAM run you around $1,300 on average. I think the cheapest one I saw was like $1,200. So that's definitely on the super high end for as far as handhelds are concerned. And the Z2E is a variant of the HX370 with 4 less CPU cores, same GPU though, and faster memory. So the Z2E should outperform the HX370 considerably.
There's so many good options coming up. I'm really, because I want to do what you're doing, Phawx, is that I want to really replace most of my at least gaming side of things with a more portable, slimmed down.
It's super freeing, especially with some of the solutions that they have there. The newer stuff that's coming out with Thunderbolt 5. Thunderbolt 5 is looking like it's going to be kind of okay. But then like there's newer ones that are using MCIO, which is the successor to OcuLink. So that can make use of PCIe 5 over wire. So that type of stuff is what, like that at that point when you go MCIO mini cool edge, you can do PCIe 5, and even if it's only 4x lanes, you're going to get double the bandwidth of what the previous gen was. So you're really going to be cooking at that point. And at where I am right now, even only in 4x lanes on I have a 4090, there is no real issue bandwidth wise. So I can match. Yeah. So if you were to design a GPU bound scenario, one game that you can do that on real easy is Returnal. It's just a heavily demanding GPU game. So if you do 4K max settings, the CPU is just going to be waiting for the GPU to just crunch all this stuff. And what I found is on my system, I can match performance to a friend's desktop 4090 with a way faster CPU, and his CPU can go up to 200 watts. And I match performance to him, indicating it's a GPU bound problem, but also the bandwidth that I have is also fundamentally just good enough. So even right now at 4x PCIe 4, that's enough for a 4090 interactively with what you need for gaming. So doubling that will fit you comfortably with wherever you need to be in all sense and purpose. So I find it freeing. Go ahead.
Oh, no. But what you're not saying is that you're using DLSS and your friend isn't, right?
No.
I'm just making a joke, by the way. I'm kind of referencing back to like
multi-frame generation. Yeah. No. It was fascinating to me because I was certain that my friend would have a clear advantage, but he does have a clear advantage when it's no longer GPU bound. When you don't have it, because the 4090 is genuinely a GPU monster that seldom will you be in a GPU bound scenario, and you will very rapidly be in a CPU bound problem. And because he has a desktop CPU that can ramp up all core to higher frequencies than I'll ever dare hit on a mobile platform where I'm limited by 40 watts and he's chewing up 200, he's going to outpace me by a bunch. But even inside of that same thing, I'll get like in Tomb Raider, the Shadow of the Tomb Raider, I'll hit like 150 FPS and he'll hit like 180 FPS. So it's not terribly, he's like 20% better than I am. But, I'm using 5 times less power than he is on the CPU side. So, but that's to be expected, right? With the VF curve of how that whole stuff works. You're just going to use exponentially more power to hit those higher frequencies. So to be expected, but still it's a very freeing type of mentality because you can have, especially with like the GPU and Max, I'm a huge fan of this type of thing, especially if you're utilitarian, is that you could have that, and then when you need to go, you just disconnect that, and then you have whatever. So now like you have the HX370, which is still a very performant chip, like Gardner's talking about, but now you have that in mobile. And when you get home, you have an HX370 CPU side, but then a 4090 on GPU. So it's like you can have the best of both worlds in like having this baller mobile setup, 64 gigs of RAM on real good CPU, very good GPU when you're mobile, and then come home and just like ramp up your GPU to like, have the PC switch equivalent, right? Like be baller mobile and be super baller when you're desktop. So I love it, and I've used it tons of times when I went to Computex last year. I took my WinMax with me, so my entire editing suite was on that laptop. I didn't have to, I'm not having my laptop that's not my desktop. So it becomes this really cool thing. I haven't had a desktop. I've been on OcuLink now for over 2 years. Haven't had an issue.
Are you using, is that the WinMax 2?
Right now, I'm not. No, so the WinMax 2, this is the WinMax 2.
Yeah, I had one of those. I loved it.
Yeah, so this is a thing that straddles of like the apex of like how big of a handheld you can go. And then, you can, this becomes like, okay, this is netbook territory with a decent enough keyboard and mouse that you can take it with you. Right now, I use a GPD Duo, which is their 2-screen thing.
Okay.
And that has OcuLink on it, and that's what I use.
Nice. Yeah, no, good stuff there. Anything else we want to look at here, high tech or any? I know there's so much like $50,000 cooling solution.
There's a lot, but there's a lot of
crazy.
but a lot of them are like engineering samples because they're all prototypes.
It's like CES and Computex and a lot of these places. Some of the stuff you see here might not ever come out actually, or won't come out for a while.
Which is unfortunate. But you know what did come out though?
SteamOS.
What?
That's right.
Let's do it.
SteamOS 3.7.8.
Go country.
Go country.
This is getting me excited.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming, right? Like a super long time coming.
Yeah, it's been like several months. Because I remember talking about some of these updates in my Steam Deck news videos in the betas for SteamOS. And like, this has been quite, like, I think maybe since December or January, we haven't seen a new stable.
It kind of reminds me of SteamOS 3.5. Remember that? That took a really long time to come out to stable, and I guess they were prepping it for the OLED release. But what are we going to get now? Steam Deck 2? Well, no, we got a Legion Go S.
Legion Go S.
I haven't gone over this yet. What's so like profound about it? Besides, just so
a lot of stuff. Yeah. A lot of stuff has like made it from like the beta like staging stuff. Like the fact that I don't know if you remember, but was it January or February when the beta came out and it enabled the LCD model of the Steam Deck to wake up from Bluetooth devices, and that's been months, and it's finally hit stable here. That's very exciting. They've also got like hands-free protocol and stuff for Bluetooth, which people have been asking for a while. They have the call. If you click on the last word of the next paragraph here, that this actually, they're calling out specifically that this Steam Deck recovery image now works on not just the Steam Deck and not just the Legion Go S, but also the original Legion Go and the ROG Ally. So like you can use this image to flash other handhelds and you can play with proper SteamOS on it.
Yep. Yeah, I installed it earlier today on the ROG Ally and just made a quick how-to video because it was insanely simple.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
I found the installation process on my Legion Go S here to be incredibly fast, like blazingly fast. It only took maybe 2 or 3 minutes, like once I got it going.
Right.
Maybe I should do that. Install on my own Steam, on my own Legion OS.
Yeah. I mean, I was playing Doom the Dark Ages on this at like around 50 FPS with low settings. And that seemed to work just fine. Yeah, I haven't played anything else on it yet because I've been trying to get SteamOS installed on other non-handhelds, but
Does the
yeah.
SteamOS,
Some
is
guys
that
in-
your new video?
Yeah.
huh?
Does the SteamOS, is that going to be your next video?
Oh yeah,
Just
yeah,
does
you
the
better believe
SteamOS
it. Install SteamOS on all the things.
the fridge? Does the fridge?
Yo, you should install on your Nintendo Switch too. That's definitely a bring a style video right there.
Yeah.
Dude.
Hey, that would actually be cool.
SteamOS.
Well, that's Nvidia, man.
But here's the thing though. I see a lot of people waiting for SteamOS for the desktop, but I feel like
Yeah.
the way it is right now is it really a good fit, given that it boosts up directly to the game mode. Like, is that really a good fit for desktop users? Because I think people want to replace their entire desktop OS, not just install on an HTPC.
Yeah, I mean, I made a video yesterday, or I posted it this morning, and as I was getting ready to finish it, this news broke, so I had to go, and I was super exhausted. But understanding what I did about this release, I was SteamOS is here, right?
Right.
And so I titled the video SteamOS is here, and I got at least 2 comments that were it is not here. When it's ready for use on Nvidia on my desktop, then it's here. And I'm I don't think you understand how this goes, right? I don't know if we're gonna see Nvidia support in SteamOS for years. Honestly, I just don't see it happening anytime soon. And I mean, I think we'll be lucky if we get Intel support anytime soon. I think this is a strictly AMD based distro, and having focus like that means that they can optimize things. And man, I just don't see it being like I said, I had trouble installing this on the NVLink GTI here with a discrete AMD GPU, and it doesn't work. And that might be by design. I think they're really trying to hyper focus and make sure that this is a beautiful experience for handhelds.
I'm sure it's going to be how long it takes them to get through their backlog of all the bugs that are going to get reported on this. So that if once they get to the desktop and Nvidia and anything else, I'm sure it's going to depend on how well this does on a bunch of other devices. So I would say SteamOS could replace the desktop OS, but it would need to switch out game mode. It wouldn't launch into game mode. It'd launch in the desktop mode, right? That's about it, though. It's a full-fledged Linux distro, so.
There are a number of really good improvements that they have included. It's been available in their latest one for a while, but if you go into their mainline, their main stuff, and you can do into a super preview build. So it's been available for a while, but the latest version of Plasma, they have libcrypt stuff that is enabled now, so that you can do encryption for stuff for desktop use where it wasn't really there before. So they're gearing up to do more stuff on desktop. To Gardner's point, on the AMD side, their scheduler is moved over from what it was before to that AMD P state. So I guess they've graduated to that where it's now at a good point. And you're going to find using that, especially with the HX370 and their heterogeneous CPU cores, going between the P&E cores and having that effectively schedule on which core is best for it. You're going to see it pay huge dividends for that. And that's stuff that I've covered before, because Cyberpunk is one game that is a game that favors many CPU cores and a lot of GPU at the same time. And that is outside of all of the Proton work that has been done to make Cyberpunk even better. Cyberpunk is a clear-cut example of, if you want better PC gaming performance, you go to SteamOS. But pretty much, Brian, if you have an AMD system, you just go over to SteamOS and you'll have a considerably better performance and consistent frame time consistency. So there's those things, and then there's some other stuff, especially with regard to Mesa that was updated. There was, I want to say, a bug that was fixed specifically for like one type of benchmark, but it had repercussions insofar as that basically it was wasting a bunch of cycles, and that got fixed up. So there's like lots and lots of things that you can see right there. Enabled AMD P-State CPU frequency control is up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, right there. So that thing is alone is huge, because if you think of it for like the stuff that I cover on my channel is always of the mindset of like, how do we get more done on these low power stuff? Because for lack of a better word, they're not, when these things are designed, they're designed from like a race to finish. So get boost to your turbo frequencies, get that work done as fast as you can, and then try to on boost. The problem is that in a gaming workload will never happen. So you're just in this state of just constantly just redlining the system, wasting power. So a lot of the things that I've always done, it becomes counterintuitive for a lot of people, and you have to kind of like walk them through it. And people are like, "Oh, I'm on a handheld PC on Windows. I go to power control and I say high performance," and it's like that is the worst thing you could do in the world. And people are like, "That doesn't make any sense. I said high performance," and I said, "No, what you are saying, you have to remember." Linux and Windows, they were designed when CPUs were the only thing on there. Literally, the memory controller was on. The memory controller was on the north bridge of the motherboard. They moved the memory controller to the CPU later on, and then they moved GPUs onto the CPU later on. But OSs and how they're designed is still designed from a mindset that when they talk to the CPU, they anticipate it to be the CPU only. So when you say high performance, you're saying push, pedal to the metal on the CPU at all times. And because, like I said earlier, we need so much GPU. What you actually want to do is enable power saver mode. And by power saver mode, it relaxes the CPU and it gives less power to the CPU. Thus, inside of the same TDP scope of how much power you can go to on the chip, you now allow more power to go to the GPU. It's counterintuitive in that state. So like the AMD P-State CPU frequency control, all of these kind of tie in together. And Linux is better than Windows is. In fact, I also did a video on this. Basically, you need a 2531 drivers and the latest AGESA and the latest chipset drivers for the heterogeneous cores on the HX370 to actually function properly on Windows. But they've been functioning properly on Linux for a long time now. So Linux side of things, kernel side, they do CPU side so much better. And that's where you really start to get to the nitty gritty of this stuff and really get down to like, only give the thing what you want it to give, because most times they have no idea insofar as what the hell they're doing, right? So, you'd be playing a game. I'll end this really quickly, but like a clear example that I would always show is like Hades or Celeste. It's like, here it is running on the Ally. It's using 20 watts. And it's like, why? It's a 2D game. What are you doing? And it's just drilling those CPU cores. They're going to 4 gigahertz all the time. And it's like, why in the world are you doing that? And then if you just go in the TDP, right, and you just throw a wrench, you're like, no, you have 5 watts. And it's like, oh, okay, I only have 5 watts. And then CPUs go down to 600 megahertz. Frame rate stays the same. There's no frame time consistency problems. Everything is exactly the same. You're just using 15 less watts. And it's like, why did I have to do that? Why can't you do that? Like, you should be aware of that. And that's what that P-State thing helps us get towards, is getting to this automatic thing and getting away from the type of work that I do and giving it so that everyone can have it without even thinking. And that's why it's a real big deal.
I mean, it's exciting. That's definitely going to make things a lot easier.
Yeah, it's super awesome stuff.
I just went and looked, and the first SteamOS 3.7 preview was March 14th. So this has been almost 2 months, or over 2 months in the making.
Right. Not bad.
So I am super curious. What do you guys think they'll do with the Steam Deck 2? Because as you know, they made a whole Steam Deck compatible, SteamOS compatible tab for like games that run on SteamOS, and that's basically the only criteria. Like, what's going to happen with Starfield when that inevitably runs better on the Steam Deck 2? Or at least I would hope it'll run better on the Steam Deck 2. I mean, it's considered unplayable because it doesn't run well, right, on the Steam Deck, right?
Yeah. So like the real question comes down to is, will Valve make a custom hardware with AMD? Will Valve pony up the money because it's just sensationally expensive for them to basically go to AMD and say, hey, AMD, for lack of like the HX370, right, as a perfect example, it's a very good chip. It's by all accounts a laptop chip. It's not a handheld chip. It's designed for laptops that are just being put into handhelds. It is CPU heavy. It's not, it does have a crap ton of GPU, but it doesn't have the bandwidth. That's the thing that boggles my mind about these things, right? Like you have 16 CUs at 2.9 gigahertz on the HX370. That's absolutely bonkers. You have something that could destroy a Series S in just GPU compute on a mobile platform, but we don't have the bandwidth. Series S has double the bandwidth that we have and less compute, right? So like that's to give you an idea of how starved for bandwidth we are on these things. But when you look at these things, Valve is not going to want to have an HX370. I don't think Valve's going to want a Z2E. I think Valve is going to want the best of the best, in my personal opinion. But then it's a big cost. And will they do that? I don't know. Will they use whatever AMD does with their Z series chip? Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. I would hope that they design their own chip, but like basically that's what it comes down to, is that Valve, for lack of a better word, is our only hope that we would have a handheld that is worthwhile to have sometime in 2026. Because the reality is that for like general handheld stuff, we won't have the next generation of GPUs until sometime in late 2027. That's when UDNA starts coming to these mobile parts, because the next round of mobile APUs is RDNA 3.5 again, and bet your bottom dollar it's only 128-bit wide, so we're still bandwidth starved. RDNA 4 gets more done in less bandwidth. UDNA is probably as well. So 2027 is like a clear cut, like, okay, that's a for sure when we have a significant, this is what the next generation of handhelds are. We can get there a year earlier. Just remains to be seen if Valve ponies up the dough, because lots of these things are kind of, not notwithstanding, but like the tariff situation that they have going on now is probably making things even worse. But like going to AMD and saying, give us this big honking GPU, give us 4 small, super awesome Zen 6 CPUs, give us tons of bandwidth, and Bob's your uncle, you're going to have this just monster that will just decimate everything else on the market. Same thing happened with the Steam Deck. Steam Deck came out when Vanguard came out. There was no RDNA 2 handheld out in the moment, and it was 2x better than Vega. So you had the current handhelds on the market, and then Steam Deck comes out and it's like $300 cheaper and 2 times better. And it's like, well, this doesn't take a genius. Like, I'm just gonna get a Steam Deck. And that has the Steam Deck really lost its place inside of like the handheld market? There are better handhelds, but is it 2 times better than the Steam Deck? No, it isn't. Not by any stretch of the imagination. In some weird places, you can get like 50% better. But then you're paying like a whole bunch more and you're using a bunch more power. So it's like, well, where are you really? What are you actually getting here? You're not 2x better. And until we get to that point, they're going to have to pay. And
I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's
a lot.
Yeah,
I will say.
Yeah, it basically like, you're basically in the territory of where Microsoft and Sony are when they go to them and say, we need a chip for the PS5, we need a chip for the Xbox. Valve needs to go to AMD and say, we need a chip for the Steam Deck 2. Please give us all the GPU and all the bandwidth. Give us the best one. What?
Do you think AMD will pull an Nvidia and be like, oh, the Steam Deck was super successful, we want more money?
No, never. They haven't done it ever. AMD has never been a bad business partner in, I don't know, how long has AMD been? 2013? They haven't been a bad business partner since Xbox One and PS4. They haven't been a bad business partner. It's evident that they haven't been a bad business partner because they have gone to no one else. The only thing that I could see that Valve would do differently is that they could still go to AMD, but they could say, hey, AMD, you know what? x86 stuff that you make is baller, but the sleep schedules are terrible on here. And especially since they went to modern standby, it's even more junk. We need stuff that power gates better. We want the ARM CPU. So then you could have something that's ARM CPU and just their UDNA GPU. So then you'd have actual emulation happening that would be needed. But so much of the stuff again is on the GPU side of things that we're starved for. That would you guys trade? I don't know. Let's say it's a 20% performance hit on emulation for actual sleep modes. Like, just press it and have a guarantee that effectively you're going to use 1% of your battery in 24 hours, right? Like you will, at the current where we are with x86, it doesn't power gate good at all, and modern standby is junk. Maybe if they backported S3 sleep mode to it, we could get there. But what is it, like time to game, TTG? That's where the Switch wins. A lot of other stuff wins. Being able to just press a button and jump right back into it has a lot of value. So I wouldn't even discount going to an ARM, because they have been doing work on ARM CPU side as well. So I could see that being a custom chip, but the big part of it is they need that GPU and they need the bandwidth to feed it. You just give us a big V12 GPU engine and give us a big honking fuel line for it, and I don't really care what the CPU. Like we're not starved for CPU, and ARM chips are good enough for 60, 120 FPS, no problem. So yeah, I mean that's also another avenue that you can do, and that would be a real wrench in the works for insofar as competing with other PC gaming handhelds, because you would be like, oh, well, now we have actual sleep modes. Lots of interesting things that they can do still.
I'd love to see ARM as
Yeah.
the next one, but we'll see.
We'll
see.
It really is just if Valve's going to spend the money, and that's all it comes down to.
I mean, there's evidence that they're exploring that option with what is it? What is it? 86 bucks or no? It's not 86 bucks.
I think it's a
Box 86.
It's no, I think it's a FXEMU or something like that. FEXEMU.
Yeah, there's something like that. It's an ARM emulator for 86 x86 CPUs. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's going to be the overhead for that emulation. We don't really have much overhead right now with the wrappers that are happening for Vulkan to DX stuff. You lose about like 3%. It's like negligible, right? It's like, okay, no big deal. And largely when you're playing games, it's not, you don't really even see it. And for games like Cyberpunk, we actually do a lot better. There has been evidence that with like Proton and all the other stuff, Fossilized and all the other things that they're doing, that if a company were inclined, they could enhance Proton for a game specifically, like Valve has already done for God of War, Cyberpunk, Elden Ring. Valve has done the work themselves and showcased that they can take this to the next level for gaming. It's like, oh, Elden Rings has these stutter problems on PC, and Valve's like, one moment, and it's like, here, just download the latest Proton and everything's cool. So that was like, whoa, but there's still only 5 million units sold. So I don't know. ARM is fine, but it isn't. ARM is not inherently better than x86. ARM has the capability of being more performance single-threaded in a lower power threshold, which is arguably what we need for gaming purposes. But then you have the overhead of the emulation that would be bringing that down. So it's kind of like you 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other. You got to take whatever you can get. I personally think it would be fine. I would like it mostly just for the sleep state. I think that would be the killer thing. Sleep mode works relatively well as it is, but RDNA 2 Van Gogh actually does have S3 sleep mode. If you do the ACP if you challenge ACP against it, it does S3 sleep. Whereas all of the newer stuff does not support S3 at all. It is SOIX only. Sorry, I was getting a call. But yeah, that's basically it. I could muse all day, but really it just comes down to I emailed Gaben. I was just like, please give us a big GPU and a lot of bandwidth. Signed, Phawx. He didn't reply.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I was like. I was like, hey, it's Phawx. Say, hey, listen, please more GPU.
Maybe you can trade in one of those super yachts for a deal with AMD.
Yeah.
Sweeten the deal. I'm curious about the custom silicon for because Gabe's son has that I don't even remember what the startup is, but we talked about it earlier with the
the
implants.
Neuro, yeah.
Yeah, and they're doing a custom silicon for that, so it'd be interesting to see if maybe Valve's going to start investing in more custom silicon. Period. Even
I
though
don't.
it's it's
Yeah,
different, but
it really is. It's not like it's terribly difficult to do custom silicon. It's just that AMD is going to charge a buttload because what you basically do is you pay for the design upfront, and at that point, AMD, like for Xbox and PlayStation, they go to AMD, they say this is the solution that we want, and AMD says, well, these are the parts that we have. Here are the Lego pieces. What Lego pieces do you want? And then you put them all together. You say, okay, you own this now. Here you go, and now you can go and fab it out. But because you own this now, and this is all of our part, you pay us this lump sum of cashola, and that's how it works. So basically, Valve would be the owner of that chip, and they would have the rights to it, and then they can go to companies to get it fabbed out wherever they want. And then if they want updates to it, they can go back to AMD, get it updated and whatnot. But more or less, that's how I understand it to operate. And that's
Okay.
why Microsoft and Sony go to AMD all the time, because they get to own the chip. Whereas we go back to Nvidia being bad business partners. They never owned the chip. Nvidia owned the chip. And whenever they went to renegotiate, Nvidia was like, well, pound salt. How about you just pay us money? And they're like, okay, well, how about we just pull the ripcord and make a new system and just leave this old one behind? Yeah, so that's really what it comes down to.
okay. Well, speaking of all this in the Steam Deck, the Switch 2 is supposedly weaker than the Steam Deck. So, getting into this next topic, I'm really curious. So, High Tech, you're the one that introduced this. Do you want to?
There was a YouTube video by the name Geeker1. I think the only issue here, so he supposedly has a PCB that is, in fact, the Switch 2's PCB. I'm not sure how he managed to get a hold of this, but he ran some preliminary benchmarks, and according to his 3D Mark tests, the, quote, simulated Switch 2 docked is faster than the Steam Deck, but the handheld version supposedly is a little weaker than the Steam Deck. I guess it's not that big of a surprise given that the Phawx has been, saying this for... He's been shouting at the top of his lungs for a while now.
Getting lots and lots of Twitter fights about it. Like, just get so many people just fighting me about this thing. So yeah, I mean, I've been trying to say it for a long time, but it's not like I'm saying, when you say this out loud, right? You could take this from two sides of the same coin. There's one side of it, it's like, okay, the Steam Deck is going to outperform the Switch 2 just because it's running at 15 watt, right? And we already know, like, we know the Switch 1, right? Let's just back up a little just so we give you some context. The Switch 1 total system power was basically 5 watt. That's the original Switch. And then when they went over to, why is it the name escaping me? When they went to their updated one, they went from a 20 nanometer planar to 16 nanometer FinFET. There was a redesigned chip that they went to, and because they went to 16 nanometer FinFET, obviously the design is much better. But they went from using 5 watt total system power to 3 watt total system power. This is total system power, okay? So it's the APU, the LCD, the RAM, the fan, the Wi-Fi, everything. Okay? To put that in context, it was running The Witcher 3 inside of 3 watt, the latest, like Switch OLED, right? The Steam Deck cannot run Witcher 3 at 3 watts total system power. It can do it at 6 watts total system power, and pretty poorly, but it can't do it at 3 watt. And that's where the Switch 1 is. The Switch 2 is in the same ballpark. You have to remember that, you look at the original Steam Deck, right? It's a 40 watt hour battery. The original Switch, and even SWOLED, is a 16 watt hour battery. So less than half. The Switch 2 is a 19.3 watt hour battery. And because we have that information, and Nintendo cites it themselves that battery life is 2 to 6 hours, that means that the worst case, them saying 2 hours, means that total system power for the Switch 2 is somewhere around 9 to 10 watts, somewhere in that area. So double what it was from the original Switch 1. But that's still total system power. And the Steam Deck uses 25 watts total system power by default. So when I'm saying this, you could take this in two ways. You can say, okay, the Steam Deck is going to outperform the Switch, but the Switch 2 is using less than half the total system power and approaching the performance of a Steam Deck, which is a big win. That is me complimenting the Switch 2. But no one saw it as that. I just said Steam Deck better, and then they're like, oh, like then no one actually read the context of what I was saying. Now, in this thing that Giger1 did, he simulated the performance, and how he did that is with a 2050 mobile part from a laptop, which is Ampere, and it's a different architecture, but everyone gets caught up on this like it's going to be something wildly different, and it isn't. That simulated bench is a good approximation, like it's 90% as good as what it's going to be. The real sauce comes down to what are game developers able to extract more out of this in terms of specific settings that they're going to use. They're going to dial things in to get as best of a possible situation as they can, that they're not going to be doing that work on the generalized PC build of anything that the Steam Deck's going to run. So there are going to be certain examples that people are going to dangle and say, hey, look at how good this works. Cyberpunk is going to be one of them. Cyberpunk is going to be a game that is an Nvidia title. It favors Nvidia GPUs, and it favors more physical cores. And this is apparent because when I got the preview build of the Steam Deck, when you just looked into GameScope, there was a whole comment block of from Valve. They're like, we say to Cyberpunk that we actually have 8 physical cores and not 4-core 2-thread. So that gave them a speed boost just to advertise via GameScope to Cyberpunk that it was actually 8 cores physical and no hyperthreading. And they got a speed boost that way. So the Switch 2 is an 8-core CPU with an NVIDIA GPU. This is a system that is as best as it possibly could be for Cyberpunk. So on day one, we're going to see examples where people are going to be like, I told you Switch 2 is better than Steam Deck. But as time goes on and you start seeing other games come out to it, you're going to see that there's developers that are not putting in the work to make a better version for Switch 2. And you're going to see that difference. You're going to see where the Steam Deck comes out ahead by a bit. But it's using more than double the power. So yes, it is better insofar as it uses more power. But the reality is that Switch 2 is still very performant because it has such a really good wide GPU, and the caches on it that it has. It's a really good mobile platform. I wouldn't talk down on the Switch 2. It is going to be good, and it's going to be great initially. If Steam Deck 2 comes out in 2026, game over, right? Like, oh well, that was fun, Switch 2. You had your moment in the sun. It's been a year, but let's move on.
And the targets are a little different too. Like Nintendo tends, they're actually trying to move that, but Nintendo tends to family-oriented games. Now they're kind of getting into the family plus adult games.
Yeah, the interesting thing, right, is like the Switch 2, the Joy-Cons can be used as a mouse. And I learned today, at least, someone said it was confirmed, but you can plug in any mouse into a Switch 2 and the mouse will work.
What?
So, yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. That's what I read. I don't know. Yeah. Someone said confirmed you can plug any mouse into it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So Switch 2 is becoming a bit more PC-like with that in there. So obviously there's no keyboard yet that we're aware of that could be use of, but it's not hard to imagine that there could be that case that comes up. In any event, it's going to sell like crazy. It's going to be a good system. I'm personally going to get one. I'm going to love it. But as we get closer to like these digital only ecosystems, I don't see any of the closed ecosystems working, because why would you want to have digital versions of games that are locked behind someone's platform? the only thing that makes any sense is if digital ownership is the only thing that we have going forward, you want to be on the most open platform as possible.
Well, we do have a topic on that here in a little bit.
Yeah, I just think that it just makes the most sense, and you can see everyone going digital, right? Like it's a foregone conclusion. But that's a whole other can of worms.
What really chaps my ass is that Nintendo has the game key system, right? Like
The
you
game key
buy
cards.
it, you get the key, you put it in, you start to download the game, right? That's one thing. But it's another thing for games to still have codes in the boxes as well.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. Why have both?
Yeah. I don't, maybe it's going to be growing pains. The game key card thing is interesting insofar as that you could resell it. And then, there's not the actual game on there. The game key cards don't potentially interest me at all. I actually have a Nintendo Switch collection, and I will have a Switch 2 collection, but I'm only going to buy non-game key cards.
It makes sense. Like, what just really gets me is that Nintendo introduced this system that people hate, but then game developers are still going towards this even worse system of the code in the box.
I mean, it all comes back to money, right? I mean, like it probably costs it's not free to do a game key card, but it's a lot less expensive to do a card in a box,
Right.
So I don't know. The money factor is always going to be the biggest consideration with that.
God damn
It would be nice for certain titles, though, to be if they want to up the price, then I know it's going to cost more to do 2 SKUs, but if you're going to do maybe collector's editions and stuff like that, maybe just up the price, because I would personally
game.
I would rather pay an extra few like $5-10 and get the cards than game cards instead of just a redemption key.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I think most people would. So I think if they just sold it that way, I think it would do better. So I don't. But then again, this is the average gamer with Nintendo, so maybe people are just looking for the best game price.
Can we trust the average gamer to make a good decision?
No, but that's who you're going to sell to. You're going to market to the average person, typically.
Yeah.
You're going to make more money.
Well, that you can't trust the average gamer to make an informed decision, and that's why we need regulation.
Well, I mean, that's true with anything, though, and that's why regulation exists, because you can't trust any party that's a whole other deal. But you can't trust the slice of a community or a party to maybe always have everyone else's goodwill and
There's
inside,
a really
so.
interesting discussion about that whole thing that you could see Microsoft going there. If Microsoft is ahead of the curve, or they're just betting on this, because you take a look at what they've done. A lot of people could say, oh, well, Microsoft has given up their third party now. They're putting their games on PlayStation. They're putting their games on the Switch. And there's a part of that where they have like this mobile platform that's ready to go on iOS, but they're waiting for all of the Epic Games and other stuff to like die down before they can do that. So there is this overarching idea that Microsoft is of the belief that there is coming regulation that says it doesn't matter if you're the platform holder, you have to allow third-party stores to exist on your platform, which would mean that Microsoft is trying to get ahead of that by just being open on everything, is what they believe. And that, if you go so far as like being on Android and Apple, okay, that's on mobile and it kind of makes sense. But then if some weird thing, this whole thing comes into PlayStation and Nintendo, that's going to open up a whole can of worms where how do you allow third-party stores on those platforms? Because they owned it, right? And they're like, say, hey, you just made new rules for us. But there is this overarching idea that there's regulation coming to stipulate, hey, you guys are all digital now. You're not doing physical. You're screwing everyone because you have this monopoly. This is no longer like when it was physical, you had Walmart selling it, Best Buy selling it, other people can resell it. But now you guys own everything. This is crazy. You have to let people resell their used their digital games, and you have to let other third-party stores exist. And this is what is this like overarching idea. And it's like, oh, okay, so if that is what Microsoft sees And then you also look at this, like Microsoft rumored to be testing Steam integration within the Microsoft Store. This is a part of that whole idea of Microsoft saying this regulation is coming. We're going to get ahead of it. We're going to abide by this regulation before it even exists. And it's interesting to think about because then that's a not so bad digital future as opposed to like what we're like barreling towards right now.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe the thing that gets me about this, sorry to like segue into like what you got here. Please also jump in at any given time. I'll stop speaking. But the idea of Microsoft including Steam on an Xbox, right? I can see on PC side, it makes sense because it's already there. Right, they're not losing anything because people can already do it. The only thing that they're going to be doing is integrating it into a front end, right? Like, so the Xbox PC side is going to have a front end for Steam integration. That already makes sense, and people aren't like, they'll, okay, no big deal because that was already possible. They're just making it convenient. But there's also this like thread somewhere that people are really believing that an Xbox Series S and an Xbox Series X will have Steam integration as well. And that I can't buy for a few reasons. I think AMD themselves would push back on that. And again, if you're going to be selling custom hardware to people, you are doing so under the guise of, well, you're only doing this on your platform and it's not even a PC, so it doesn't really compete with us. Like AMD making Xbox chips and PlayStation chips, that doesn't compete with PC chips that AMD sells. But if all of a sudden every Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X runs PC games, that means that now AMD is competing against chips that they had made for them years ago, right? And it's like, oh man, you guys have super awesome gaming stuff, and we've been doing super crazy CPU stuff, and all of our GPUs suck in these things. And that's what we've been selling to people. So I see AMD pushing back on that. And on the opposite side, if Xbox Series S or Xbox Series X had Steam integration, that means that they have to support 60,000 games that Steam has. And if whatever driver and other stuff that they have running in there starts breaking, now they have this whole support thing that they have to take care of. And that's a big goddamn problem. So there's a few reasons and pushback that I see it not coming on the console side of things. And the PC side is kind of like whatever. It's like, okay, it's a front end. So that's my mind on this particular thing. And that's the only 2 cents that I really have to add on it.
So here's my thing, though. You say that AMD might not like it because then all of a sudden the Xbox hardware is competing with their own CPUs they sell.
Yeah.
But could that same logic not apply to pre-builds versus custom built? Because like I'm sure AMD would see more money if you bought like a CPU directly from them instead of like a pre-built. You know what I'm saying?
So here's the deal, right? Like Microsoft used to sell them for $500, but even like now that like the new tariff version of them, they make no sense. The Xbox Series X 2 terabyte is like $730, which is just a stupid cost. Like no one would buy that. No one was buying many Xbox Series X's before, and no one's going to buy them at $730. But if all of a sudden that same system can also play PC games from Steam directly, that's actually a pretty good gaming system. And it's $700, like, well, that's actually not too bad. And now AMD's like, crap, like we can't sell you the latest stuff that we have because this thing is now not so expensive gaming pre-built, right? Like that's where you have this nice living room ready thing that AMD has no real answer for, even when it has an inflated cost of $730. At the before cost, when it was like $500, forget it. It's a hard thing for them to compete against. Like the Series X is very performant.
Yeah, it would be very interesting to see if they integrate and if Steam and Valve want to actually partner up with Microsoft. I know they're, Gabe Newell is one of the, isn't he a founder or at least one of the some of the originals of Microsoft back in the day, and then broke off with someone and created Valve.
He worked on the NT kernel.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I mean, like they started on SteamOS because they were afraid of Windows 8 and Windows 8, like removing them from being able to actually have a store. So SteamOS, like Proton and all that stuff, kind of sprung about because of Microsoft. And
a little bit of an anti-Windows thing.
Yeah, but then
at least to combat it. Yeah.
Yeah, but then as time has gone on, Microsoft has been like super cool with Valve. and like putting their games day one on there and being better business partners. And since then, like those whole things have kind of simmered down a whole bunch. So I don't know where it is, but as long as like they remain good business partners, Valve, Gabe is fine coexisting. I don't think that there's anything wrong there. But if you said the same thing during Windows 8 days, I don't think you'd find Gabe like no, go pound salt.
Yeah, I remember that. It definitely seemed like they didn't want anything to do with it. But I will say,
Gabe said that Windows 8 was a disaster for the entire PC space.
Yeah. So, it's just I don't know. It's interesting to consider. At the moment, I basically consider this for the PC front end space. And we have tons of front ends that integrate a bunch of crap already. So, I mean, hell, Armory Crate on the Asus RG Ally is a front end that integrates Game Pass, Steam, Epic. It already does that now. So who cares, right? Like,
True.
You already have it. Yeah.
But if Xbox, because they are having trouble selling and competing against PlayStation, and they're putting more and more of their games onto Steam and making that a better deal, and I'm sure they're making, they own so many game companies that the more that they can cozy up with Steam, the better. And if they can get Steam onto Xbox, and yes, they wouldn't have to be every game. They could do a specialty filter, or maybe even like a Xbox approved badge on it for certain games, or at least games that they release. Could really, like what you mentioned, like that's a really good price for a Steam machine. Is getting an Xbox. I mean, so they're in a world of and it's really hard to get all these big companies to work together sometimes. But in a world like that, that could be a huge deal and help compete against PlayStation again.
Yes, I'm totally in agreement. I think that like there is no doubt in my mind that there is millions of people that will only play on console because they got burned by PC somewhere in their life, and they just find PC to be this inscrutable Rubik that they can't solve. And consoles have been this thing that they plop in like a toaster, and it just runs and gives them toast. So if you were to say Xbox now plays PC games, and you're like, wait, like, is it still an Xbox? And like, oh, I just use it like an Xbox, but it plays PC games. I see the value for a lot of people in that. And then all of a sudden the value proposition for that goes like bananas. Like it becomes like that $730 price for the 2 terabyte model right now is like stupid. You'd be dumb to buy that. But if it
I would personally buy an Xbox. I would buy one.
Yeah,
I don't have the newer generation, but I'd probably buy one for my home.
Yeah, for a living room
system.
Yeah, exactly. It like what I'm saying, like $730 right now for an Xbox, you'd be like, oh no, that's dumb. And it's like, oh, but it also plays Steam games. You're like, oh, come again? Say once more, please. 730. That's it. You say?
Yeah.
Like it becomes a gigantically different value proposition. RDNA 2 at 12 teraflop is monstrous for what it gets done. So yeah, I mean, it's super compelling, but again, I see a lot of competing interests saying don't do that. But then again, Microsoft has so much like sway that maybe people don't really see, but like you look at NPUs, right? All the Ryzen AI 9 Max thing, the stupid name that it has, right? The reason that it has AI is because it has an NPU on it, and that NPU does nothing. Like effectively it's inert, but they're wasting silicon space on those mobile APUs. So they're spending top dollar and top silicon for this wasted die at the current moment, because Microsoft was like, hey, we need this thing because we're doing Copilot, we're doing all this other stuff. We need an NPU on all these processors. Go put it on there. And then Intel and AMD and even Qualcomm were like, yes, sir. And they just did it. And what sucks for me is like, this is at the cusp of when everyone finally sees the light of how awesome PC gaming handhelds were. Like I was back in 2016, just like, oh, this thing's awesome. And now like, Steam Deck comes out and it's like, oh, this is pretty awesome. And then at the same time, AI happens and we don't get bigger GPUs and we don't get more bandwidth. We get these hunks of NPU blocks that do nothing. I don't know. It's almost like it's a cursed situation that happened. I've digressed again. I apologize. This is me just venting out loud.
Hey, no. That's what we like
Nah,
to
it's
hear,
good.
man. We like to hear let the hatred flow.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, unless you want to talk about some more stuff, Gardner, on this topic, we do have some hatred coming up.
I have one thing that I want to add to this. I'm curious if Microsoft, if they do have Steam integrated into the Xbox platform, will they do kind of a switcheroo deal where you, or like a not a switcheroo, like a Steam Play deal, where it's like you install Steam and you if you have like any Microsoft games that are available on Steam, if you own them on Steam, you can play the Xbox version.
Yes.
I feel like that would be a very smart move for them to do, because then, you know, they could have like, they could basically pop up, oh, look at all the Microsoft games, you know, if you get them for free, and then all the PC games that aren't Microsoft that you have through Steam, they don't perform as well as the optimized Xbox versions, and that would be like, and they might not even call that out specifically, but just to kind of like be like, look, Xbox gaming is so much better than PC gaming. Right. I feel like that would be something Microsoft would do.
I mean that is honestly also a very compelling thing. Again, we still don't have Game Pass proper on Steam Deck. How many more people would subscribe to Game Pass on their Steam Deck if they could just like, oh, I'm going to get Game Pass, but I'm going to download the Steam versions of those Microsoft games that I have. Like, not for nothing, you look at Starfield, right? Starfield is like, oh, we had a PC update that came out. And it's like, okay, can I get on Xbox PC app? They're like, oh, no, it's just on Steam. And it's like, but it's, you guys own Bethesda and you own the PC app. Like, how does Steam get the update first? And it's like, oh, it's still going through validation. Like, what the hell are you guys doing? Like, why is Steam moving so much faster than you guys? So you could literally be in a position, like you're saying, Gardner, where you could have the best of both worlds. You could have your cake and eat it too. You're like, no, I have Microsoft games, but I get them through Steam's layer, which is way faster and they iterate faster on. So that also is super compelling. For me, I would love it. I think everyone would love it. I just find like there'd be a lot of competing big business interests that were like, oh, slow down. You're going to screw things over for us.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why I think they might even do a swap on like, hey, let's Xbox, we're going to do our Game Pass on the Steam Deck, but in return you need to be on Xbox. They might do maybe they'll do some type of deal where, you know, it'll benefit both of them, but we'll see. That takes a lot of, for big companies, that takes a lot.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Valve obviously moves faster on whatever the bureaucracy engine that they have, but like, there's certainly a reason, like, you know, Valve could be like, well, Game Pass can be allowed, but, you know, we're going to need 30%. And it's like, hold on. Like, we Game Pass is like, we have the revenue coming in from Game Pass, and that is like already distributed to like these projects, right? Like we can't just shave 30% away and just give it to you so that we can put it on Steam Deck, even though we know it would increase subscribers and people would love it. We just can't afford that. So yeah, I'm sure in the scenario that you know, whatever's getting cooked up, it's like a little, you know, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, and we'll just let the chips lie as they may. So Game Pass can exist on Steam Deck, but people can buy Steam games on Xbox, and Valve gets the money from people buying it on Xbox, but Microsoft gets Game Pass on Steam Deck without having to lose 30%, right? Like, there is that possible arrangement that could happen.
They could help sell Steam Decks too. Like, they could really help push if they want to try to sell more Steam Decks or more SteamOS, they could help that too. But we'll see. I mean, Valve's an interesting company when it comes to that type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was like a Steam Deck on Reddit thread where it was like, Game Pass is like the one thing that they like, especially because Game Pass has just been baller since November. Game Pass has just been banging on all cylinders. Like every month, like you had Indiana Jones, Blueprints is on there, Doom Dark Ages, Claire Obscure. Like there's like every month there's been 2 games that have been like, wow, I really want to play those games. So perhaps through happenstance, they fell into like this 5-month baller period of just crazy goodness. Oblivion, the Oblivion remake coming on, you know, like it was rumored for a while, but like how that came out and that was awesome. So there's just lots of lots of cool stuff that they're doing. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
This is going to be the one episode where we're actually praising Xbox. Sorry, Gardner.
Dude, we get so many like, oh, we hate Xbox so much comment. Like we're like clearly anti-Xbox. It's not that we're anti-Xbox. It's we're anti-stupid decisions.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, for me, it's like the original Xbox and the 360 are two of my favorite consoles of all time.
Yeah.
So I'm critical of Microsoft for the way they have mishandled the Xbox One and the Series.
Everything.
And it's like, people say it's hate. No, dude, I actually genuinely like two Microsoft products. As a Linux user, you should be like congratulating me on that.
Yeah, like the 360. The 360 is the last console generation that I loved. I moved to PC full on in 2010. So the tail end of the 360 generation when it started winding down anyway, and Microsoft was on cruise control. But the teams that made Xbox and the 360 were gone by 2010, and then you just had suits that were there, and they cared zero for any social capital, any cool capital. They only cared about actual dollar capital. And I mean, how in the world could you imagine if you had Fortnite before Fortnite happened and you were just like, meh, how about we just let that just spittle out? Like, how do you do that? How do you have something like Halo and get it to the point where it is today? And it was just fantastic mismanagement. The Halo TV series was just...
I almost threw up a little when you said that.
Don't remind me.
I don't know how a company could possibly mistreat
Microsoft
an IP.
Had Neil Blomkamp on the hook to do an actual good Halo, and they just let him go. Like they just mismanaged him to the point where he was like, "Screw this, I don't want to do it." Neil fucking Blomkamp, dude, like one of the greatest directors of our time.
Yeah, and the Halo TV series is just a travesty. But the only good news is that the Fallout TV series. I mean, people can rag on Todd Howard all they want, but thank goodness Todd Howard was like there for Fallout to like just be like, no. Yeah, the Fallout TV series, that's canon. That whatever happens there, that's canon with the, have respect for whatever the hell you're doing. And then the Halo TV series comes out. It's like, oh, no, they're blue team. This is just a multiverse. It's like, are you telling me that the Halo TV series is essentially fan fiction? Like, why the hell how could you possibly mistreat this? Imagine making like Harry Potter movies that weren't based on the books. Yeah. And it's like, are you all there? Do you even know what you're saying? It just bothers me to no end.
I think we can all agree, # bring back Peter Moore.
Yeah, at least he said crazy shit.
Yeah. Dude, hey, he actually gave a shit about Xbox.
Yeah, as a CEO, what was it, Don Matrick? Once they moved to Don Matrick, that's when they went full suit. And
Xbox never really recovered, did it? Not from his.
No, I mean Phil. Phil Spencer gets a lot of shit, but perhaps it just took too long. I don't know. They just you can blame a bunch of stuff and you can blame a bunch of things, but I don't know. I see.
Dude, Microsoft just needs to put me in charge of Xbox, and I'll bring it back.
Bro, you're just gonna turn Microsoft into a Linux company, dude.
Dude, they already love Linux.
They're already turning into Linux. They use Linux so much nowadays.
They made Windows a subsystem for Linux open source.
Yeah.
They actually. I mean, I don't want to give them too much credit, but yeah.
What the hell does that? What does that entail for us, though? I don't know. What that entail, to be honest.
They care. They actually do contribute a lot. They're one of the biggest contributors to open source. It's wild.
So There's a point where I don't know. I the only thing that I would wish, I have a small stupid wish that I wish that they would do, and this is like one of those things where it's. You invest in your cool capital, you invest in your social capital. You don't plan on it making any money, and it's just like, oh, we bought Activision, we have Bethesda, we have all these old IPs, we have Blizzard IPs. Like, let's make a new rock and roll racing. Let's make a new Space Quest. Like, I'm not even talking about. God. I'm not even talking about making I'm talking about making Rock and Roll Racing 2 as if it was still on Super Nintendo. I'm talking about making a new Space Quest if it was still on a 1993 PC. Like,
Yep.
have the same, give a $1 million, give a $2 million budget, which is nothing to them. It's a rounding error, and just make it. Who cares if it doesn't do anything? Just you have Game Pass, have one cool thing every month, nonstop, just to build up your social capital because you squandered it. Just
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of squandered, let's get into the next topic because we're running out of time, guys. We got to get.
Are we
this.
though? We can go all day. We can go to 3 hours if we want.
I have a bedtime that I have to get to at some point.
I've been sick all week, and so I'm like my sinus headache is not liking it. Okay. So
we talked about this last week. Yes,
we did.
So
update.
the Phawx wasn't here. So last week we talked about Fortnite's AI Darth Vader. Have you heard about it, Phawx?
I have, yeah. They're using James Earl Jones' voice.
Yeah, and so SAG-AFTRA is fighting back against Fortnite, claiming unfair labor practices because Gardner mentioned this, or I think it was I forget which one of you two mentioned it, but mentioned that this essentially robs a possible opportunity for like a Darth Vader replacement voice, because now all of a sudden no one's ever going to voice Darth Vader ever again. He's going to be entirely AI from here on out.
Right. Yeah, they're just going to source a bunch of the stuff that he has said and just give that as the model and say, hey, say these lines, and it does. I'm of two minds on this. I agree with where they're coming from insofar as there is a fundamental problem that AI and companies using AI must eventually face, is that it needs to have some idea of what it is using. It can't just use it and not have any idea of what it's using. And it needs to know, like, okay, I'm borrowing some of this, I'm borrowing some of that. Like, if, remember when Studio Ghibli stuff was just getting spit out images like nonsense, like from OpenAI? Like, it's like, make a Studio Ghibli thing. And it's like, okay, 5 cents go to Studio Ghibli. Like, it has to have some thing inside of it where royalties are automatically divvied out. There needs to be some regulation structure that AI has to have, know what it's using and then pay accordingly to whatever, because you can't just, because it's a zero-sum game eventually when you just kind of get all this done down, and then you just have this AI model doing stuff. On the other hand, I don't like, so like one thing that I plan on doing myself, I don't know when, but it's going to be like one like stupid passion project that I have. I don't like the new voices of Rick and Morty, and I would rather AI them back to the Rick and Morty voices but I'm going to do that for myself, right? Like, I like the idea of having something that sounds authentic, because I can hear, if you found someone that was like spot on Darth Vader, then cool. There's totally people that I know that you can do that with, but the people that they found for Rick and Morty are clearly not Rick and Morty, and it bothers my ear when I hear it. It's like it brings me out. It, like, I can't get invested in what I'm watching because my brain is constantly being like pulled out of what I'm engaging with. Whatever, no big deal, right? And those people are still getting paid, but so I just want to choose myself to alter it, and not that they're, what these guys are doing. So that's where I am in my head. I love the idea of personally being able to do that. It's less cool when they're able to just wholesale do it without feeding back into the system that fed it.
So here's the thing, though. So we all know that James Earl Jones signed legally in 2022. Do you think he could have predicted that Fortnite would just put his voice wholesale in there and just let people do whatever they want, like have him say slurs and shit? Because that definitely did happen.
I don't know that anyone. I think that everyone anticipated AI to first do all of the manual labor that no one wanted to do, and not all the creative, cool stuff that everyone wanted to do. Like
Man, that's
no one saw that coming. No one saw. I was like, oh, it makes the stuff I wanted to do in my spare time. Like, it doesn't
Well,
do the stuff that I do for work.
I think he wanted his voice to continue on, right, within the movies and other art. But yeah, I don't even think he
yeah.
knew what Fortnite was.
Yeah.
So
It's
probably
like
not.
it's like what's his name, Roger
Yeah.
Ebert, right? He like did a lot of voice stuff so that his voice could still be used to do stuff in the future as well. Yeah, possibly, maybe, I don't know. Regardless of whichever way you slice this apple, the reality comes down to that you can't just feed a model wholesale all this stuff and then crap out whatever you want in the style of whatever you want, and not have that person be, even like credited, right? Like, I mean, just like, goodness gracious, like, even if it was like for personal use, right? Like, as like a funsy thing that, like, okay, well, whatever, this person's not going to sell it for commercial reasons. But like, there's like D&D artists that I really like, and when AI stuff was first coming out, I'm like, do it in this style, and it would do a reasonably good job, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. And then you have, I respect artists, and I have my avatar that I use to this day is from an 8-bit artist that I commissioned to get done, and I want artists to be paid accordingly. So initially, when it first came out, there was no taste to AI. There was zero taste to AI, but it feels like we're on the cusp of that kind of going away. Give it a few years, because it's been alarmingly fast how good the whole generation process has been.
Think end of year for a lot of support roles. You might not replace a lot of main, but like I use a lot of AI tools to help support some of the stuff I do. Partially because I'm just tired of writing boilerplate stuff. Does a really good job if you know what you're doing. Like, someone that doesn't know AI and writes code is going to write shit. But if they know what to do, then that's a completely different thing.
Yeah, the atomic operations are things that small atomic operations are things that AI can reasonably do well. And then when you start having it, it's, well, some of the things I would like use some of it, and then it was just like, well, you just erased most of the code. Like, it just broke everything. What the hell did you do?
That's
there.
Yeah,
if you
it
like,
will definitely do that.
Yeah. So you really gotta, like, have. And there's so many, like, vibe coders. You're like reading, like, they've done something.
That's what I joke about every week right now. Is I'm in my my villain phase. I'm vibe coding.
His vibe coding phase.
Kind of. I'm not. I know what I'm doing. I know the code I'm writing, and I have it fix it. I've done semi project management roles, and so like I know what I'm doing, but it's still funny to see people that don't get onto like Reddit and like, this thing's happening, or like there's more and more attacks happening, like sites getting taken over because they don't know how to write secure code. It's interesting.
Yeah.
What if you had one AI write the code, and then a separate AI correct that code, and then you had the first AI correct that code? I wonder what would happen. Similarity.
I'm actually writing some of that right now. It's kind of interesting, because if you give it good context and good prompts, you can end up with an interesting end result. But the problem is, I still don't think we're at the place where you can't have a human review the stuff that it does, whether it be artwork or code.
What if you did this as a person that didn't know how to code?
You're not going to... So you really have to be careful, because if it loses track of wherever the hell it was and just starts hallucinating new stuff, it really needs to have previous context of what was going on as your especially the code base as it is. So it really short, small atomic things are things that it'll just bust out fairly well.
A little tip is you have a project MD file in your whatever you're doing, and you have it read from it and record to it what it did in short little things.
Right.
And it does a really good job, but it can still hallucinate. It can still get off at times.
Right.
Not as much now, but it still can. So it's
Yeah,
not autonomous.
But that's what I mean is you can't allow anyone that is not aware of what's happening or have any insight into how things work using this at all, and especially in production environments. This is I would like it's like a full stop. Do not enter. Do not like. Yeah. But like when you go for like other things, small things, any just like plain text that you just want to enter in, it's fine. But like I don't know, I still ultimately think that we have to go into a regulation phase for.
Oh yeah.
I think it'll happen at some point. I mean, we've already seen some legislation in regards to AI and like AI generated sexual imagery. Like we've seen that.
Yeah, that's
probably like
Trump.
It's probably the biggest regulation that's happened so far, and I think there's more to come.
I think both parties wanted it though. Like that's a very rare. Trump is pushing this huge AI thing. He has a lot of donors, a lot of people that are in the AI sphere that don't want regulations. There is no way we're getting regulations on AI until we have a different essentially government, like who's running the government, because it's just not going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen to where the regulation is going to have to be something. If your company is replacing workers, not hiring more, and your profit's still high, you're going to have to be taxed on an AI like percentage of what it's being replaced, or some type of profitability. Like you're going to have to, or else we're just doomed. But yeah, soapbox. I'm off my soapbox.
It's all good, man. Soapboxes are what this podcast is all about.
And, well, you thought that we weren't going to mention anything about Trump or anything, but yeah. Anything else you guys want to mention on this AI thing? Like, did we even get to the main part of it? SAG-AFTRA.
I mean, not really. They didn't really do anything besides condemn Epic Games for doing this. At least not yet. At least there's a good chance that maybe they'll take action. Who knows?
They're very aware of AI. They're very aware of AI, and they're very concerned with it, which makes sense.
I mean, I can see why. The problem is that voice actors don't really get as much love from SAG-AFTRA as like actual like normal, typical like in-person actors do, which is unfortunate.
True, but sometimes the actors will, the regular or like in-person actors or in real life actors or whatever, they do speak up for them sometimes. So like yeah, hopefully, I don't know, it will be interesting to see where it all goes. For that, historical reasons.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was going to transition to the next topic. So if there's...
yeah. So was I, actually. I was going to be like, or you could do it the old-fashioned, or you could do it the old-fashioned way and just steal and plagiarize work instead of the old-fashioned way, not using AI. So have you heard about the marathon situation, Cary?
I have.
Yeah, so it looks like there's been an update. Morale at modern Bungie is at an all-time low. Player feedback was not great with the gameplay itself, because I mean, who wants to play a game where you lose everything? You'd have to be a sadist to play something like Tarkov.
Well,
but at the same time, though,
is it where you lose everything, like in the game itself, or because their servers only ran for a certain amount of time and it's because they had to reset it?
Well, no. It's an extraction shooter, so
yeah,
you get gear, and if you make it out alive, then you keep it. But if you bring that gear in next time and you use it up, or I guess die, you lose that gear. You lose that gear forever.
So it is like Tarkov kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah,
because I know there's some extraction stuff where, well, maybe it's all based on that. Yeah,
I mean, I know Tarkov also does like resets every season as well. I haven't played the game yet. It does seem pretty cool. I do like extraction shooters, or at least I would like to like extraction shooters. I haven't tried out any because honestly, Tarkov
Hunt Showdown.
Oh?
is a better one, I think, than Tarkov. Hunt Showdown is pretty good. I like that one a lot, but it does suck to lose all your stuff.
Yeah, but like, you know what feels even better? Making other people lose all their stuff. Dude, you can tell I'm a troll. I'm a griefer. I've played too much Dark
honestly,
Souls.
you probably would like something like this then. So okay, Marathon's confirmed. It's a high tech game. Okay,
Dude.
from the stolen artwork to
So
you should
for
see me play Dark Souls 1. I love invading people in Dark Souls. It's awesome. Basically, yeah. All right. So basically, in Dark Souls 1, you can choose to invade other players, and you can actually stop their forward momentum in the game by ambushing them.
You probably would have loved Ultima Online in the 90s.
oh my gosh, yeah, you probably would have.
Griefing was
Oh my
awful.
gosh, that was so bad.
Dude, griefing's awesome, man.
It's so great.
No, it's not.
I love dunking on people that are low level.
Dude, it's not about winning. It's about making other people lose.
Oh my gosh. Yeah,
I didn't realize. I saw Little Shop of Horrors when I was a kid. I saw it in the movie theater, and I did not realize. I had no context to understand. You guys ever watch Little Shop of Horrors?
Dude.
No, I haven't.
Yeah. All right. So Steve Martin, Bill Murray's in it for a short moment. Rick Moranis. It's a great movie. You should watch it. It's kind of weird, but it's awesome. Anyway, there's a scene where Steve Martin is a sadist and he's a dentist. So it's a great job to have because, they're strapped down and they're getting drilled and he's enjoying it. He's enjoying it because they have to take it and they're paying him money. So he's loving it. Bill Murray comes in and he's a masochist. And he goes there and he loves it because he's getting pain. And the sadist hates it because the masochist is enjoying it. And I didn't realize that when I was a kid. I was like, what the hell is going on? And only until I became later on in my life, and I was like, oh, dentists are sadists. That makes sense. And that all of this didn't come into my head. Speaking of you being a sadist, just griefing people in Dark Souls, I was getting a root canal done. Root canal.
Dude.
I was getting a wisdom tooth removed, and the guy put Novocaine in my mouth, waited like a minute, and then started going to work. And I was like, "Oh, I feel that." And he went like this. I'm not even joking. He went like this. Like what? Like the hell, dude? Like, and when he went, it was like Little Shop of Horrors. I was like, oh, dentists are sadists. This all makes sense now. He hated Bill Murray because Bill Murray was enjoying that. Oh, so it was like all of it came rushing back to me. Anyway, you should go watch Little Shop of Horrors. You probably hate it because you're a sadist.
Dude, I think I will. But,
if you like musicals, though, it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Dude, yeah. But anyways, modern Bungie. We were talking about how Halo fell hard under the stewardship of Microsoft, but to be honest, it would probably would have fallen anyways under the stewardship of modern Bungie because
speaking of sadists,
this unfortunately I take no pleasure in because I actually kind of like Destiny. I do play a lot of Destiny.
So Destiny just felt like Halo to me in a different world. Like all the physics and gunplay in it were Halo-esque.
Well, yeah, it's based on their internal engine.
Yeah, the
Tiger engine, I believe it was. But with some certain modifications, like the ability to use other weapons with stats and perks and all that shit.
Right.
I don't know, but Bungie isn't doing so hot. Morale is at an all-time low because, like I said before, not great impressions with the gameplay, and the art theft. Arc Raiders came out. The alpha also came around the same time, and it was much better received.
Yes, yeah, I'm aware.
And because of that, and also the plagiarism accusations, they started calling Marathon Art Raiders.
Oh, I get it. Clever.
Dude, it's kind of fucked up if you really think about it, but it's really funny.
Yeah, I mean, it's back to that. We mentioned Ship of Theseus. If at what point does the studio, are the original team members that made Bungie still there and in force? Are they still present? And there's lots of companies like that. Like there's like In Exile. Yeah, so it's you kind of have these studios that have done all these things, but none of the people that made it what it was are really there. And yeah, we're there's things that are getting lost, and I don't know. It's all in the value of, like, again, they don't value the social capital. They don't value anything. It's a complete tangent, but it's like, if we were talking about regulations before, private equity firms should be regulated against. It is a monopoly in all sense of names. It's like one step removed from being a monopoly. It's like the dumb thing that they do in Japan with like pachinko parlors, where it's like, no, they're not gambling. They're just, they bought the balls. It's like, yeah, but they take those balls and they walk 5 steps outside and go into a parlor, and then they cash out those balls. And like, yeah, well, that's another store. They buy those balls. Like, they're the same place. They're just, you're just one step removed. And the private equity firms, to me, man, are like the absolute worst of where we are right now. And then they just buy up all this stuff, it condense down, get people to like work like crazy, and then offshore whatever they can. And it's just this crazy go nuts thing of like taking all of these, like the point of where they are right now. I don't know if you guys are aware. Have any of you guys been following private equity firms at all?
No, I can't say I have.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
they've done the bigger stuff, right? Like, Burger King and all the fast food restaurants, and they consolidated all. So now it's like Blackstone or whatever it is, owns all of those. But they've done all of like the easy pickings targets that they're now going into like the next level of oh, well, how about we just buy up all the HVAC and plumbers in a certain region, and we'll buy all of those, and then we'll just shove them all into one place and like fire a bunch of people and have them do the jobs of like 80 companies, and we'll just keep all the field engineers, but all of the administration will condense. And that's like their step. That's where we are in private equity firm area, is that they're just buying HVAC stuff. And there's a joke from like one YouTube channel that covers like work labor laws and all this other stuff, and the video was like making a plumbing business to be bought up by a private equity firm, like as a joke, right? Like they, if they say like, oh, this plumber doesn't even have a website, think of all the money that we'll be able to make like by doing all these things. And it's just like a shell stupid company to it's like a honeypot for private equity firms. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of the honeypots that they've done for AI, where they have these robot text files that have recursive links and keep them caged inside, just like constantly looping through.
Yep.
It's kind of like that. It's like, this is the stage of warfare that we're at. We're creating shell plumber companies to be purchased by private equity firms. I don't know, dude. Stuff.
Maybe we could do that. Make a shell plumbing company.
Yeah.
There we go.
Or we could make a shell game development company that Microsoft buys.
Yeah, like I don't know. We'll call ourselves Bunjo.
Bungo.
I know where we get a lot of assets for it too. So
Yeah, I got this guy on tap.
yeah. Yeah, private equity is a nasty business. They are parasitic and such a. It does not. They don't really do much for society in any way.
No.
If you blame it, if you liked Pizza Hut back in the day, blame them, because they're the ones that bought them, then made it so that they had worse product, and they just haven't recovered.
Yeah, Toys R Us, KB Toys.
Yep.
Private equity firms. I literally anything from my childhood that I can remember that fondly like going to and having some type of like good time, private equity firm came and just extracted, just took all the juice and left the husk.
Yeah.
It's so crazy how, honestly, I don't say this often,
totally
like evil it is.
Yeah, I don't get it. It's like monopolies. No, you can't do that. Private equity firms. Yeah, all right, cool. You're a monopoly, but you're like all those companies still exist. So you're not one big company. You're like 13 big companies, but you're just at the top of that, and it's like
and they're almost
weird
worse than a
pyramid scheme.
they're worse than Monopoly. They'll buy
They are.
everything up, and then they just, because they want to extract profit. That's the whole point, is to extract profit.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And not to actually build a business up and improve it and
Yeah.
get more profit in an ethical way. They do it in an unethical way, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, it is what they do. They just min-max all of the companies that are in a sector, take all of those companies that are in a sector, move around whatever resources they have to better extract out of it, and that's it. And it's like, oh, well, that all failed. It's like, yeah, well, we're full. I'm like, oh, well, what else can we private equity? It's I don't know.
if you're working at a company and it gets acquired, I'd look for another job, because usually they're gonna lay off a lot of people anyway.
Yeah, they're gonna down. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah,
and it's stressful. Ugh. Okay, guys, we have one more topic. Do we want to do it, or should we just skip it?
Warhammer conference. Gloss over it real quick. We just want to talk about like Warhammer. So Warhammer has gained a lot of notoriety as of recent, primarily because of Space Marine 2, but also because of Secret Level, and also because of Henry Cavill being a Warhammer dude. It's like the number one. It's like the one nerdiest thing anyone can do, to be honest.
I never got into Warhammer just because it was way too expensive. I could never rationalize. Like I was like, oh, cool, Warhammer, and then I picked up a little figurine. I was like, $40 for this, and I have to paint it. Like, what the hell?
That's how Games Workshop is still around, man. You pay $40 for a figure that you have to paint yourself.
Yeah,
otherwise it'd probably be like.
What's amazing to me? I don't know how Games Workshop is still around since 3D printers came along, because you could totally just be like, I'm gonna print myself up a little $40 figure for about $3. And,
it's collectible stuff. And you'd be shocked. You can make some good money if you're really good at painting them. But then also on top of it, you customize your army and it also gives them buffs and it does other things. Like there's a whole thing about it.
I am totally like the geek side of me loves it, but the cost conscious side of me will just not entertain it. And
it's exactly the same.
Because Henry Cavill told you to do it.
I mean, I am genuinely excited for the TV show that he's going to be making. Like, I loved all of the Witcher stuff that was out prior. I don't know. I appreciate that he is, adamant about being, like, oh no, we have to keep to the lore. I want to be invested in something. I don't want to invest in like fan fiction. It's like, okay, whatever I understand that Warhammer there's lots of stories and there's lots of things, but I don't know. I think a lot of it is like super canon-y. Like they just have an easier allowance because it's just such a giganto universe of stuff. There's like trillions of population. So it's like, oh, of course this could happen in this world over there because it's a bazillion people. But yeah, it's when one thing that I liked that Disney did, not that I liked it all that much, but when they bought Star Wars, they basically said, hey, all those books and all those comic books and everything else, that's all legends now. None of that happened. And it's like, wait, you're saying all of the things that people got invested in story-wise never happened? They're like, no. It's just a legend. And if you're going to like retcon a bunch of stuff and say it never happened, I have a problem with that, like wholesale. But they have it as legends now. So it's like legends that happen inside. Like, oh, did you hear that there's this guy that did it? So it's legends that happen inside of the lore of Star Wars, that all of these are tall tales that those people have told inside of there. Like, okay, well, that's at least some consideration. But it's like, I don't know. Have you guys ever read any of the Halo books?
Yeah.
I read The Fall of Reach like in middle school.
Right, yeah. The books I genuinely loved. Eric Nyland did some fantastic work from like the first few ones. And I was so invested in that after I read, like I played the game and I loved Halo 1. And I was like, oh crap, I'm going to read the book. And then that was dope. And then they were just like, actually, all the books aren't canon. Whatever happens in the game is canon. And it was like, here's the list of like precedents for canon for the Halo series. And it was like, the game is number 1. Books are like number 3. It was like something like crazy. And it was like, well, you can't have basically all you're saying is anything that isn't the game is fan fiction. And that's dumb. And it's gotten to the point that the games are so convoluted story-wise that we've already talked about how
They've lost the
handled
sauce.
this thing. Yeah.
You know,
Halo's never been a good story, in my opinion. I think the universe and a FPS shooter and a co-op shooter, it's fun. I don't think the story is like amazing. The books
It's
are
not.
actually good story.
The-
I actually like the story. It really flushes things out.
When
in my
you
opinion.
if you are very reductive for the Halo TV series, it's like, what if the Bible was real and it's sci-fi? And it's like, what? Yeah, you know the Ark? Oh no, yeah. That's actually aliens. It's like, huh? Yeah, like that's all that comes down to is that it's like Bible sci-fi is what the Halo, if to be reductive, right?
Yeah.
I kind of like I'm on board with that, like with all the things that they did, and then, like the Halo rings are to terminate all life, but the Covenant, the Covenant, think that's how they get to heaven. Like that's how they die and go to heaven. They go to their better life. So there's like an idea of an afterlife and all, but they don't know it's an afterlife. They're just like, oh, if we activate this, we go to heaven, and they'll die. But it's like all of these things are like, oh, okay.
Very dogmatic aliens is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, dude, they call Master Chief demon. Like it's all just sci-fi Bible. That's all that it really is. But I still like that because it's kind of like Indiana Jonesy type of in that like that realm. Like, okay, I can buy that. I like Indiana Jones stuff just because it features that stuff and it's supernatural in a number of ways. So it's the same type of thing for me. Yes, I will agree that if you're reductive, it's kind of like super like whatever. I used to like it, but now it's just whatever.
I mean, to be honest though, I think a lot of what makes Halo like so memorable for people is the cinematography. I mean, like, it's very reductive. Yes, it's just basically the sci-fi Bible, but like at the same time though, like if you're actually watching the cutscenes, it doesn't. It feels more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, yes.
Sure.
The music
also.
Yeah, the music is.
The music.
The music, yes.
Everything about it was a flash in the pan thing that I don't think they were like white knuckling the entire development process of what that was supposed to be, like an RTS into the FPS, going to Xbox. It was like there's a whole thing of like actually landing where they landed. And then the multiplayer just be like, whoa, this is unreal. And then when Halo 2 came out, that was, by and large, like you look at the lobby system that they created and all the other things that they made, they were in the future. And, they were like banging on all cylinders. And I would even say that Halo 3 was like the pinnacle of Halo-ness. There's actually a video that someone recorded and like a mini documentary of his own personal thing going to a midnight launch for Halo 3. And it's like in 720, like gnarly 720p. And it's genuinely one of the best YouTube videos that exist on the platform. It just feels like a very YouTube video, and it manages to capture Halo 3. And it manages to capture the aura of Halo, the last remnants of it.
It's crazy. It's crazy to think that Halo used to be like, you know how GTA 6 is like the most anticipated game right now? Right. It's crazy to think that Halo used to be there and it's all gone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and speaking of like retconning lore and like turning it into legends, you know, I've always remember the Legend of Zelda? Like there used to be an interpretation that all of the Zelda games are telling the same story, more or less, but like given that it's a folktale that's been passed down throughout time, the story has changed up slightly because that's just how folklore changes over time. And I've always really liked that interpretation instead of it being like the 3 timeline thing that like modern Zelda is. Because
what happened to Wind Waker then? Like Wind Waker is quite a bit different than all the other ones.
Well, you know, probably don't folklore from like thousands of years later. You know, it's not even the same story. Like
pirate folklore.
You know, like
there
Disney.
Okay.
Like, you know how, like, Disney's interpretation of, like, fairy tales are, like, completely different compared to, like, the actual fairy tales? Yeah, like that almost. But, like, not quite Disney.
True. True.
Yeah.
Well, Warhammer. Have we
They
said
also
our piece
announced a
on
bunch
this?
of games during the Warhammer Skulls event that happened the same time Computex happened. They announced Warhammer Space Marine
The remake.
Mastercraft. And,
Yeah,
yes.
whatever. Yeah, that looks cool. Have any of you guys played Space Marine 2?
Yeah.
been
I
meaning
have
to.
two's on my list. I played the original and I
It's-
loved it.
Yeah, I played the original and it was fine. It was very PS 360 type of game.
Yeah.
And Space Marine 2 is just way better. I was not I still have to play through it, but the engine that they have designed for Space Marine 2 is fantastic. The amount of enemies that they have on screen at one time while keeping performance consistent is crazy. It really puts you in this space of whole crap. You know, like Starship Troopers, where you just have this wave of aliens, and it's just like there's millions. I can't even count them. They're uncountable amount of enemies. The first level of the tutorial does that for you. It's just like this swarm that is never ending, and performance never really wavers all that much. It's just a truly fantastic engine to flex that world. And Space Marine 2 is 10 times better than Space Marines 1. If you guys are
That's what it looked
anywhere
like,
on your queue,
for sure.
yeah, it's really cool. I really enjoy. I love the Space Marine games. I love the RTS games. I love all the different. I love that they're so free with like, oh, let's put this in this type of game, and it's like this is a TRPG, and this is an RTS, and this is like a third person action game. I love that they're super flexible and allowing that license to go to all these different companies, and it helps. It helps that making Warhammer. There was also that boomer shooter. They're making
the bolt gun. Yeah, I have that. That was I really liked it.
Yeah,
That's one
Bolt
I
Gun
still
2
need
is
to play
coming.
too.
Yeah, like
It's on my list.
I love that they're so free to let their license, their IP kind of dance around, and I think that helps the Warhammer franchise kind of hit people that it normally wouldn't hit, because if they just stayed inside of the tabletop game that they were, it would be a super niche thing. But what they've allowed is really cool. I love the idea, and more to the point, I would love to get more involved in the Warhammer thing, but I think for me, the Henry Cavill TV show with Amazon Prime is going to be like where the lore sits in my head, because I have like a general understanding of like what's going on, but I'm genuinely waiting for that.
Yeah, 100%. It's games, and I maybe some other stuff I read online sometimes about it, but I can't do the game.
Dude, I'm sure one of
tabletop.
us has a friend that has like a 12-hour like Warhammer lore PowerPoint info dump.
I do.
Oh,
What's removed? Was that like 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon? We got 1 degree from Warhammer lore.
Oh, no.
how many degrees?
I know
from
somebody-
Kevin? Yeah,
I went to a wedding in Vermont a couple of last year, and this one of my friends was there, and he was like, "Hey, let's go to the board game shop," like in the downtime between the wedding and the reception. And so we went to the board game shop, and all he wanted to do was explain all the fucking different like figurines and what they were, and I was like, "Dude, I'm a nerd, but I'm not that nerdy, all right?"
Dude, so I'm glad we're all in agreement that Warhammer is like the number one nerdiest thing.
I don't know. I've come to appreciate it more when I was a
I'm
younger.
not saying that's a bad thing. I'm saying
Right. Yeah. I mean, I was always a nerd and a geek growing up. But even for like when I saw people playing Dungeons and Dragons, I turned my nose up at those guys. I was like, Dungeons and Dragons, nerds. like look at me, I'm Dungeons and Dragons. I have chainmail on. like I'm a nerd making fun of those guys, and I'm just like, actually, Dungeons and Dragons is very.
All right, so we gotta make a nerdiest thing tier list. Like we can all agree Warhammer's at the top. What's number 2?
Dungeons and Dragons.
Star Wars, probably.
I mean, there's
I
like,
don't know, man. A lot of normies like Star Wars.
what's the nerdiest thing? I don't even know, man. I like Dungeons and Dragons has got to be up there.
Yeah, I think so too. And then
Yeah.
anime's probably up there too, to be honest.
Yeah. What's the generic universal role play thing, like
LARP.
What?
LARP.
LARP.
GURP? No, GURP.
Oh,
So like
that?
there's D&D, right? But if we're making a tier list, then GURP is if you're making
what's that
your
acronym?
own generic universal role play. So it's like it's a framework for you to make your own D&D style game. And that if you're making your own D&D style game, then you're a tier above.
Right.
D&D.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I can. Yeah. Like
Yeah,
D&D is D&D when D&D is pedestrian for you.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm a Gerber.
I'm a Gerber.
Oh man, look at this Gerber baby.
Dude, where do you
my
think video
gosh.
games lie on that tier list?
They've grown in popularity, but if you asked that question in the '80s, it would be full on nerd.
Yeah.
Growing up, I had to hide the fact that I played video games, lest I would be labeled, is full on nerd territory, and you did not want to. I remember playing basketball when I was like 12 with someone. We're just playing basketball, and it's like we're playing, and he's like, all right, well, I'm gonna get going. I'm gonna play Diablo 2, and I'm like, Diablo 2. And we get closer, and you're like, do you play EverQuest? This is like you're like whispering at that point, but that's like where it was. It's like
That's funny.
it was just like you did not admit out loud that you played video games when I was young, at least in where
Yeah.
I grew up.
I mean, comic books used to be the same way too. I mean, before Marvel made it really big, I mean, you'd have to be a huge fucking nerd to know anything about the comics besides like, oh, Batman's parents died. Like,
I've
that's
never
like,
Yeah, I never saw anyone actually read comic books. Anytime I ever heard anyone talk about comic books when I was young was like, "Oh, if I get this, it's going to be worth a lot of money in the future," type of thing. I never actually found someone that read comic legitimately. I never saw anyone read a comic book. But then they could have been hiding. They could have been like,
that's probably
say-
what it was.
yeah.
When I was growing up, my dad actually published comic books. Like he wrote and published them. So
Wait,
yeah.
wait. Who do you work for? Marvel or DC or someone else?
He was an independent comic book artist.
He was a Gerper?
Yeah, dude. He published a comic book. So in the late 80s and early 90s, he had 3 issues of a horror anthology comic book called Fang Magazine. And then later on, he had a 10-issue series called Lobsterman, Maine's First Superhero. And there's like nothing about it online. I've looked.
Yeah.
I'm looking right now. I don't see anything that looks like a comic book.
Nah, dude.
That's crazy.
I have all 10 issues in my
Dude,
closet here.
Dude, Lord
that's
drop.
cool.
Dude, Lord drop this shit, man. This is interesting stuff.
Well, I haven't read all of it because they're like the books are falling apart because they're like literally 30 years old. So
Just put like some like latex gloves. Yeah, you know those gloves that they use to like unbox rare stuff like magic cards. Like if you like come across a Black Lotus video, like they're always wearing white gloves. Oh yeah, magic.
gotta
is
digitize
there,
that.
too.
You gotta digitize,
Yeah.
preserve it.
I know I need to do that.
Anything you want to plug before you head out?
No, I mean, you can just find me on the Phawx on YouTube, and I cover a lot of PC gaming handhelds. I try to explore, taking them as far as I can, but also to give you a good understanding of the performance you can get out of them and any of the new news that's coming out. And that's what I do.
Yeah, this guy Phawx never gets old.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Okay, with that, let's head out. Later.
All right,
Have a
take
good
care,
one,
y'all.
everyone. Later.
Thanks.
Later.